In a cave somewhere, the Light of Glory Guild and another group of adventurers fight a magical beast. One of them gets hit in the leg by the beast's attack, but the priest easily heals him while the mage freezes the monster. Then, the leader of the Light of Glory finishes the beast off with his magic sword. He mocks one of the members of the other guild, Leonard, for being too slow, but the guy only laughs at him. On the other hand, Leonard's teammate isn't happy since this mission was supposed to be a joint mission between their guilds. Before a fight starts, Leonard leads his teammate away, satisfied that they beat the monster without a problem. For the guy who defeated the monster, the other guild should just be thankful that they didn't leave a bunch of deadbeats like them behind. After that, he grabs his comrade named Fildo, who doesn't look thrilled to be there. A member of the other guild can't believe that Fildo's been hiding behind a rock the entire fight, so his teammate explains that he's the point gifter. Leonard can't help but look at him, but he doesn't say anything and just walks away. Later, the members of the Light of Glory celebrate. Their warrior, Bobson, notes that their guild has grown so much, and the priest, Carl, agrees with him. Meanwhile, the mage, Dorothy, wonders if there's any guild out there that can compete with them. According to their leader, Claude, the Light of Glory is the strongest guild in terms of size and level. Anyway, he's curious as to where Fildo went, only to be reminded by his comrades that he's the one who ordered him to run some errands. Elsewhere, Fildo makes sure he's got everything he needs. Also, he helps a man stop a stack of crates from falling. While the man is grateful, he doesn't know why Fildo is letting his teammates treat him like an errand boy. The man tries to make him understand that he'll never become a great adventurer if he stays that way, but Fildo just bids him goodbye before running away. To be honest, the point gifter is aware of that too. When Fildo meets up with his comrades, Claude asks why he took so long to buy their healing potion. Dorothy isn't that surprised though, thinking this amount of work was too hard for Fildo. The point gifter wants to tell his teammates that they should do the chores next time, but he just keeps his mouth shut. With Fildo not doing anything, Claude sarcastically asks him not to be upset, while Dorothy reminds him they let him off for taking their monster material once in a while. Disgusted, Fildo starts walking away. But Claude stops him and gives him a piece of paper showing the list of things he's deducted from his salary, also informing the boy that their party didn't do well that quarter. Once Fildo is gone, Dorothy talks about how convenient the power of the point gifter is. The experience gained just by having Fildo in the party is more than doubled, and not only that, but the amplified experience can be distributed freely as the user pleases. Thanks to Fildo, the Light of Glory has become the country's #1 guild. However, Dorothy is confident that their abilities are now more than enough. That said, she believes it's time they get some fresh air. In his room, Fildo checks his status window while thinking about Dorothy and Bobson's amplified experience. He's been in the Light of Glory for several years already, but his level hasn't gone up at all. His teammates always keep him in the back and assign the extra experience to the guys who can fight better. This is because he doesn't have any special abilities other than the ability to distribute and amplify the experience of the participating party. Years ago, Claude asked Fildo to join the Light of Glory when he learned that the boy had yet to decide which guild he would join, saying they would be the biggest and strongest guild in the world. Right now, Fildo can't even stand by them anymore. When he goes to Claude's office the following day, he's informed by the guild leader that they don't need him anymore. Fildo is aware that his level is definitely low, but he knows he's contributed to the guild with his experience-sharing ability. Dorothy points out that they no longer need those experiences, for there's no one who can compete with them anymore. They're already the strongest. In addition, the Light of Glory only sees Fildo as a burden since he can't do anything else. While all the members of the guild are high level now, Fildo is still at the bottom and is nothing but a hindrance. Once again, the members of the Light of Glory remind Fildo that he has no skills at all, aside from his experience-sharing ability. They stress that his sword and magic are at the level of common people, and they are not sure what the boy will do if he leaves that place one day. But of course, the only reason why Fildo's level is so low is because they didn't let him fight. Claude wants to know if Fildo is okay with their decision to remove him, so the point gifter asks if they're sure they want him to leave. Sad to say, the guild members just burst out laughing. Bobson emphasizes to Fildo that he doesn't need to ask them if they're sure about their decision because they want him to leave ASAP. Walking toward Claude, Fildo asks him if he's certain he wants to expel him. If Fildo takes back the experience they've all gained from his skill, they'll be greatly affected. This is where the guild leader starts to get pissed, making it clear to the boy that they don't reward useless people. When Fildo tries to argue and clarify that the guild won't be the same without him, Claude punches him for making too much noise. Claude wants Fildo to remember that he's just some lowly level 1 adventurer. He won't give the point gifter a severance payment, but he'll let him have a broadsword. Claude advises Fildo to try not to starve to death, but if ever the boy runs out of money, he's sure he can always do some begging. Humiliated and hurt, Fildo grabs the sword and tells the members of the Light of Glory that this will be the last time they'll see each other. Then, he takes back all the experience he's lent them and leaves as he levels up. When he was young, Fildo saw a man with a scar on his face eating dragon meat in an inn. The man was talking about how fresh it was and that it was gourmet food for adventurers. While watching the guy, Fildo couldn't help but drool. His companion told him that someday, if he became an adventurer, maybe he'd get a chance to eat dragon meat too. So he should do his best. In the present, Fildo wakes up after having a dream. He keeps on leveling up as he continues his journey, and he has no idea when it will stop. Well, the experience was loaned to almost everyone in the guild, and if the amplified amount is being returned all at once, then that's going to be fairly high. When Fildo checks his status window, he is surprised to see some crazy status numbers. Truth be told, even the country's own knight commander doesn't have that much. Fildo can't believe the amount of amplified experience he lent his old teammates, so now that he's getting them back, he wonders if he can try out all the things he's given up because of his weakness. Let's see, maybe Fildo can join the Knight Order and rise through the ranks, but if his goal is to earn money, it wouldn't be a bad idea to become a first-class adventurer in a guild. Or he could start his own guild. Yeah, he can do whatever he wants anyway. Maybe he should start with something he's been wanting to do for a while. After a few minutes of thinking, the point gifter decides to eat some dragon meat. Moments later, Fildo heads to the Altair Royal Adventurers Guild. The receptionist wants to know if this is Fildo's first adventurer service, instructing him to fill out a form and asking what kind of request he's looking for. When the point gifter asks if there are any reports about dragons, he gets the attention of some adventurers. As Fildo states he wants to know what dragon meat tastes like, a veteran adventurer laughs and admits that even an old-timer like him is having a hard time with dragons. In other words, there's no way a newbie like Fildo can deal with those beasts. He's also curious if Fildo wants to test his strength so badly, but before the point gifter can explain himself, the man declares he'll be the one to test his skills. That said, the veteran adventurer suddenly comes at Fildo. The receptionist is in disbelief that he's testing newcomers again, but the man just tells her not to meddle. He then continues charging at Fildo, who keeps avoiding his attacks. He mocks the newbie for what he's doing, saying the dragons are several times harder and faster than him, only to be silenced when Fildo slams him on the floor. Needless to say, no one saw that coming. The veteran adventurer has no idea how the rookie managed to beat him, and just like him, those watching are greatly puzzled. The receptionist tries to make sense of what happened, but she's interrupted by Fildo, who apologizes for causing her so much trouble. Also, he reminds the receptionist that he was asking for information about dragons. According to the woman, there is a road that goes to the north after leaving the royal city. There are reports of a dragon's appearance in the mountain area of the Nautilus region. This is a road through which the merchant group also passes, so it is of great importance. After confirming that his destination is the mountain of the Nautilus region, Fildo thanks the receptionist and immediately gets out of there, leaving the woman stunned. Then, the guild's communication device rings, and when the receptionist answers it, the caller asks where Fildo is. The receptionist shares that the boy went to the mountain area of Nautilus for the dragon request, also learning that he was a former member of the Light of Glory, and revealing he was very strong and alone. Running outside, Fildo can't wait to finish his first mission. More importantly, he's excited to eat some dragon meat. Meanwhile, Bobson and Carl talk about the adventurer they've recruited and how good she is when it comes to fighting. Sure enough, the lady easily beats her opponent in a sword match. Actually, she's defeated her opponent 5 times already, and eventually, the guy gives up. Afterward, Claude praises their new comrade and refers to her as Miss Lunasis, noting she isn't known as the Sword Saint for nothing. While the guild leader is all smiles, an irritated Dorothy bites her fingernails. She's not happy that Claude is being too flirty, not liking the fact that he's treating Lunasis like a princess just because she's a little bit skilled. Ooh, someone's jealous. Once Lunasis walks away, the smile on Claude's face disappears. He then approaches Dorothy and informs her that the Sword Saint is being suspicious about Fildo's absence. Right now, Claude is just deceiving Lunasis by saying he's letting Fildo take a break. But the lady is determined to meet Fildo, always asking when she can meet the person with the experience-sharing ability. Claude never thought that the reason she agreed to be recruited was because she was interested in the point gifter. He knows that his excuse won't last long, and he is not sure what to do about their problem. First of all, he used the money that was supposed to be Fildo's pay to bring the Sword Saint to where they are. He considers pulling another ace and bringing the boy back, but Dorothy vehemently refuses. There's no way she'd let their group go to all that trouble for a worthless piece of trash like Fildo. As Dorothy argues with Claude, Carl asks Bobson if he's challenged Lunasis yet. As it turns out, Bobson has decided not to, admitting he has a bad feeling about it. It's like his body is losing its edge, and lately he feels like his equipment is becoming too heavy for him. While he's explaining, Carl receives a call and learns that Fildo is heading north to the mountain to take on a subjugation request alone, immediately letting Claude and Dorothy know about it. Claude can't believe how reckless Fildo is, but at the same time, that gives him an idea. This is what they'll tell everyone that happened. Fildo of the Light of Glory, who was on vacation, mistakenly believed that he himself was becoming stronger as his guild grew more powerful. He recklessly accepted a subjugation request alone, but unfortunately, he was attacked by bandits and died in the field. Claude believes this is the best scenario ever, and just like him, Dorothy is excited about this opportunity. Normally, people don't try to handle a request by themselves. She's sure that they'll easily take care of Fildo, suggesting they start gathering some people right away. Agreeing with the mage, Claude announces he's coming too, to make sure that Fildo will die, so Dorothy decides to come with him. With the two going after Fildo, Carl is certain that the point gifter will have no chance of surviving. Wasting no time, Claude leaves with Dorothy and some guys who are good at rough stuff, not knowing Lunasis is watching them from a window. Near the mountain range, a group of merchants discovers that the dragon is finally out on the street. One merchant worries about his pile of provisions, and if they can't get through that area, they'll have to make a detour. As if that isn't enough, they have to be prepared for a 3 to 4 day delay. With no other choice, the merchants choose to get ready for the detour. They may have to leave some of their cargo behind, and they're frustrated since they know that dragons stick around for a long time. Although one of the men has already contacted the guild, he isn't sure what time the adventurers will get there. To the merchant's surprise, a young adventurer runs past them. It's none other than Fildo, whose excitement is written all over his face. The merchants try to stop him and let him know about the situation with the dragon, worried because he looks like a novice adventurer. They know that the guild will send a subjugation team, so they advise the boy to avoid that road. "Me! I am the adventurer who received the subjugation request." At first, the merchants don't know what to say, but one of them places his hand on our boy's shoulder and asks him not to be too rash. Even though Fildo can't wait to start his new adventures, the man wants him to understand that dragons are very difficult and scary. Naturally, Fildo insists he's not a newbie, but the merchant stresses that dragons are the kind of monsters that take several experienced adventurers to beat. For him, it's impossible for a young man like Fildo to do that all by himself. However, the merchant's mind changes when he notices Fildo's Light of Glory crest. That leads him to think that the point gifter is a capable adventurer, apologizing for saying something disrespectful to him simply because he looks so young. As expected, Fildo doesn't make a big deal out of it. Now that that's settled, the merchant informs Fildo that the things they carry have a significant impact on the lives of the people to whom they will deliver them. He can only beg Fildo to slay the dragon, but, he doesn't really need to do that. Fildo assures him he'll get rid of the beast, and with that, he runs off to find the dragon. Shortly after that, Claude arrives with his group. The merchant assumes they're Fildo's companions, so he lets Claude know where the adventurer went. Moments later, Fildo finds the high-level monster, Red Dragon. He analyzes it and thinks of his next move, but without warning, the dragon strikes him with its tail and sends him crashing into a tree. As a result, Fildo's back gets covered with wood chips. But the dragon isn't done yet. No. It uses its tail once again to attack Fildo, who's already gotten out of the way. He acknowledges that the pressure from the dragon's attack was insane, noting that his fingers went numb from the strain and that it shook him to the core. As the dragon breathes fire, the point gifter expresses how surprised he is. Then, he evades the dragon as it comes at him, confusing the creature as to where he went. It realizes too late that Fildo jumped high in the air, and as he lands on the dragon, he makes sure to strike it hard with his sword. Fildo knows that his sword is not sharp enough to cut through the dragon's hard scales, but with the present him, it doesn't matter. All he has to do is push through, and it isn't long before he defeats the dragon. Yada! Yep, Fildo is shocked that he managed to kill a dragon all by himself. This only means that he can finally eat the dragon meat he's been craving for. That aside, he isn't sure if it's wise to dismantle the dragon there. Much to his surprise, Claude and Dorothy show up with the merchant he was talking to earlier. The mage reveals that their newly recruited sword saint is looking for Fildo, asking the point gifter to come back with them immediately. When Fildo refuses, Claude says the monsters might wipe out the whole merchant group. And by monsters, I mean Claude and his minions. As Fildo weighs the situation, Dorothy notices the dead red dragon behind him. She's curious if Fildo's the one who killed it, but Claude bets another party took care of it first. Whatever the case, he'll end Fildo's adventure now. He lifts his sword and tries to burn the point gifter, but the blade is heavy, and he can't take out the magic power in it. Pissed, Dorothy attacks with freezing hell. Fildo simply smiles, for the mage only managed to unleash some beginner magic, cold. One of the adventurers restraining another merchant starts to panic, demanding Claude to explain what's going on. He has no idea why the guild leader told him a different story about Fildo, but he doesn't get to hear Claude's answer because our boy knocks him out. Fildo is irritated that Claude even instigated the guild members. Claude then comes at him with his sword, so he kicks the guild leader in the gut and sends him backward. Fildo doesn't want Claude to be involved with him anymore, and of course he plans to do the same thing. He will forget about the light of glory. Claude can't believe what's happening, but knowing there's nothing they can do right now, Dorothy uses what little magic she has left and creates a diversion to escape with him. She doesn't even care about the adventurers they colluded with and just leaves them. When Fildo realizes that Dorothy and Claude ran away, he quickly checks on the merchants and apologizes for the trouble he's caused. Luckily, the men have no serious injuries. Afterward, the merchant that Fildo befriended offers to lend him one of their carts so he can take the dragon's body parts to the city to be sold. Although dragons are a great threat, their horns and organs can be used as medicine, their scales as armor, their claws as weapons, and lastly, their meat as a prized delicacy. There's even a saying among adventurers that there's no part of a dragon that is to be thrown away. That night, the merchants help Fildo dismantle the dragon, and to thank the men, the point gifter decides to share with them its meat. Wasting no time, they make dragon skewers and feast around the campfire. On the other hand, Claude is filled with rage, thinking about what happened between him and Fildo. Later, the king summons the light of glory to his palace. There are a few things he wants to know, starting with the extermination of the dragon in the Nautilus region. The king found out that the merchants there complained that they were detained by the light of glory and some other adventurers, although he also heard they were suddenly released afterward. "Do you have any explanation for that?" asks His Majesty, to which Claude calmly replies that it's extremely upsetting. As everyone knows, the Light of Glory is the most prominent guild in the country. Claude claims that someone out there is pretending to be them, adding that one of their guild members may have instigated the incident involving the merchants. He stresses that his group has nothing to do with it, and shares that they've been in their council room for the past few days, but we all know that's a lie. Even Claude's comrades are in awe that he can lie to the king with a straight face. Well, His Majesty believes what Claude said. He's worried that there are people who are doing evil and using the Light of Glory's name, and the fact that they've had a lot of failed requests lately. The king points out that nurturing one's followers is the duty of the guild leader, wanting Claude to remember that negligence and overconfidence can lead to his demise. At the same time, the king makes it clear that they must come to a conclusion on that matter quickly. The Light of Glory will be informed the moment the palace receives any news, so they should be on standby. As the king dismisses the adventurers, Claude swears he'll get back at Fildo. He doesn't know how the point gifter improved in such a short period of time, and he can only wonder how that happened. Again, he's unaware that Lunasis is observing him. Concurrently, Fildo thinks about the 100 gold coins he's received as a reward for the dragon. Also, he didn't know that the merchant he helped, who introduced himself as Mr. Gonzalez, had such a big store. Now, as Fildo looks around, he sees that they have just about everything from accessories to medicines. As the merchant brings Fildo some snacks, he lets him know that he invited him to his store to show his gratitude. Then, a man enters the store and announces he's looking for an adventurer named Fildo. As the point gifter introduces himself, the man apologizes for his rudeness and reveals he serves as a member of the royal guard of the kingdom. He's there to take Fildo to the palace because the king has requested an audience with him, and he's also been informed that a reward has been bestowed on the boy for slaying the dragon in Nautilus. Without even thinking about it, Fildo tries to decline the invitation. So, Mr. Gonzalez immediately covers his mouth, for it's beyond disrespectful to refuse a reward from the king. Scared, Fildo tells the man that he's coming with him. In the throne room later, a nervous Fildo is presented to the king. His Majesty smiles as he lays eyes on the adventurer who's said to have slain the dragon, and the point gifter kneels before him, saying it's an honor to meet him for the first time. For the king, though, there's no need for Fildo to be so formal. After all, he slayed the dragon that was roaming in Nautilus and protected the logistics of their country. Admitting they've also had their troubles dealing with the dragon, the king considers Fildo a hero. That said, a hero deserves a reward, so the king calls the butler, Sebastian, who gives Fildo a bag of gold coins. Understandably, the point gifter is reluctant to accept that much money, but the king has no intention of letting him go home empty-handed. Honestly, the king wants to give Fildo one of his territories too. He wants to know if the adventurer is interested in becoming a lord, but Fildo politely refuses. Even if he were to suddenly receive a territory, he knows he wouldn't be able to manage it. Rather than having a land to live on, Fildo would prefer to go out, walk around, see things with his own eyes, and gain some experience. The king thinks it's too bad that Fildo won't accept a territory, but he won't force the point gifter to take his gift. His Majesty just promises to lend Fildo a hand if he needs anything at all, and the adventurer can consider that as his second reward. Thanking Fildo for his time, the king orders the captain to escort him to the gate. He finds it funny that he got dumped, admitting he's really curious about Fildo's experience-sharing ability. Outside, Fildo thinks about the cunning king. He's also in disbelief that he's received a huge amount of money, which he can use to buy whatever he wants. The first thing that crosses his mind is buying new equipment, knowing that people won't trust him as an adventurer if he's not well equipped. With that thought in mind, Fildo decides to go back to Mr. Gonzalez's store. But all of a sudden, a cheerful lady calls his attention and hugs him. Lunasis is thrilled that the two of them finally met, saying the guild kept telling her that he was on vacation. She admits to Fildo that she joined the Light of Glory just so she could meet him, expressing how happy she is, and not caring if other people are watching them. Fildo is aware that the lady's name is Lunasis, and the Sword Saint confirms this, sharing she used to be an ace adventurer in a big guild from another place. Anyway, Lunasis has always respected Fildo from the bottom of her heart. The adventurer gave up his experience and dedicated himself to the guild, and that's what you call self-sacrifice. That's not something that one can easily do. At this point, Lunasis is totally fangirling over Fildo, because everything that the Light of Glory has achieved is due to his efforts in the shadows. This is where Fildo interrupts Lunasis to tell her he's left the guild, quickly correcting himself and saying he was actually forced to quit. According to him, the guild apparently doesn't need people with useless skills like him because they've already earned enough experience. But before he left, he gave them some friendly warning too. As of the moment, Fildo is working as a freelance adventurer. There are so many things he's always wanted to do, but he also wants to go solo at his own pace. Realizing Fildo doesn't belong to any guild now, Lunasis takes his hands and states she has no attachment to a guild that doesn't have him. "Mr. Fildo, please form a party with me," the Sword Saint exclaims, and the point gifter can only look at her. Later on, Lunasis informs Claude that she's leaving the Light of Glory. This pisses the guild leader off since he paid a good amount of money to have her there, saying what happened at the king's palace was total nonsense. But it's not even that. You see, there's nothing Lunasis desires from a guild without Fildo. The Sword Saint apologizes for not telling Claude that at the beginning, promising she'll return the deposit given at the time of signing the contract. After saying what's on her mind, Lunasis turns to leave. Claude desperately tries to stop her, but the lady pays him no mind. In addition, the guild leader can't believe this is happening just because of some amplifier. To make things worse, Carl comes running to Claude's office to let him know about the situation downstairs. As it turns out, the adventurers are refusing to do any more dangerous quests. They remember Claude saying they'd be as strong as they wanted to be if they joined that guild. But while that was certainly true before, numerous quests have failed lately. Just to be clear, those are the quests they could easily do before. Also, some adventurers who were supposed to be highly skilled ended up dead. Depending on what happens next, they might have to leave the guild. Are they joking? No, just look at this guy's injury. Oh, that's not where Claude's problem ends. The adventurers saw Lunasis leaving, and they assume she's given up too. Now that Claude thinks about it, strange things have been happening ever since Fildo left. The adventurers thought they'd made progress, recalling that the guild leader swore they'd be able to increase their abilities by joining the Light of Glory. Claude even told them about Fildo and how he was just slowing them down, but for some reason, he'd always let the boy and his party on the higher difficulty quests. Just what the hell did you put that kid through? One adventurer asks Claude, leaving him speechless. At the Altair Royal Adventurers Guild later, Fildo talks to several people about elves, but none of them is able to give him any good information. While in the library, Fildo guesses the information on elves is quite rare, but he's read about them in a book a long time ago. Elves are said to be a mysterious race that doesn't appear in public places. Fildo's next goal is to go to the Elven country, and if he doesn't find any elves, he's sure he'll be able to talk to some race similar to them. Suddenly, Lunasis appears beside the Point Gifter and asks if he's interested in elves. The truth is that Fildo already refused to form a party with Lunasis, but the Sword Saint just won't give up. Then she surprises Fildo with the news that she's already left the Light of Glory. She only joined that guild because of Fildo, remember? But enough of that. Lunasis wants to know what kind of book Fildo is reading, so the Point Gifter shares he's trying to find the country of elves. Although he knows it's a wild tale, he explains that the thrill of adventure is to discover something that no one has ever seen before. For Lunasis, Fildo really needs to form a party with her because she knows how to get to the Elven country. Afterward, Fildo and Lunasis get kicked out of the library for being noisy, but the Point Gifter doesn't care. All he wants to know is if the country of the elves is really somewhere out there. Okay, this is Lunasis's chance. She implies that she'll only show Fildo the way to the Elven country if he agrees to form a party with her, and this time, the Point Gifter doesn't refuse. However, he clarifies that this is just a temporary partnership until they reach their destination. Ecstatic, Lunasis suggests they immediately get ready for their journey. Back at Claude's guild, he learns from the captain of the Royal Guard of the Kingdom that the king is indefinitely suspending all activities of the Light of Glory. As per the notice, all future activities under the name Light of Glory are strictly prohibited. After hearing what Claude said the other day, His Majesty became very concerned about the matter and decreed that the guild leader must make sure to apprehend those wrongdoers who damage his guild's name. Once Claude settles everything, his guild is authorized to resume its activities. The captain then starts to walk away, but Claude demands to know what they will do in the meantime. Even if they recover from that debacle, their funds are not unlimited. But it's not like the captain can do anything about it. The king's word is absolute, and should any unauthorized activity be observed, a more severe penalty will be imposed. At worst, the guild could be disbanded. By the way, personal activities are still allowed. If the Light of Glory is trying to make ends meet, the adventurers can pick up trash in the royal capital, or help out with emergency food distribution and so on. Serving the country like that isn't such a bad idea. As the captain leaves, Claude completely loses his cool. After that, he shares with his comrades what happened. He recounts kicking Fildo out of the guild and recruiting Lunasis, believing that's where they should have started becoming even more powerful, but everything is just falling apart. Sad to say, the other adventurers hear them talking, so Claude apologizes for the pathetic sight and assures them they can start over. But who would want to stay in an inactive guild? One adventurer chooses to look for another guild and apologizes to Claude, thanking the guild leader for everything he's done for him. As he's about to go, Bobson confronts him for leaving them just when they need him the most. That's a big mistake on his part because the adventurer isn't in the mood to listen to him. The man punches Bobson in the face and causes him to lose his balance, and with that, he finally leaves. Carl rushes to Bobson's side, only to see the warrior crying and complaining about how much his face hurts. He can usually take a punch like that, but obviously that's no longer the case. Worried, Carl prepares to heal Bobson, but he discovers that his recovery magic isn't working. No, scratch that. He has no magical powers at all. At this point, it's safe to say that the Light of Glory is crashing down. Meanwhile, Fildo fights some werewolves in a forest somewhere and successfully drives them away. He's curious if there really is an elven country in the middle of that forest, not seeing anything that looks like a proper road. Naturally, he wonders how the Sword Saint found it. It's like the lady knows a lot of things about that place. All of a sudden, Fildo hears another werewolf heading Lunacis's way. The Sword Saint is bathing in the spring, but it's not a problem at all, even if she doesn't have her weapon. As the point gifter alerts her about the monster, Lunacis turns around and strikes the wolf with just her hand. Then the wolf flees out of fear, and Fildo can't help but take a peek at the lady. Lunacis asks him to join her when she notices him, but our boy refuses and immediately looks away. Smiling, Lunacis assumes that Fildo is worried about her, and asks again if he's sure he doesn't want to join her. She starts thinking that maybe she isn't attractive enough, so the point gifter assures her she is beautiful. After dealing with the werewolves in the forest, Lunacis informs Fildo that they'll soon enter the Mist Labyrinth. Most people can't even find its entrance, and even if they do, they won't be able to get out. According to the Sword Saint, beyond that labyrinth is the country of the elves. Fildo is curious as to how Lunacis knows so much about the elven country, and that's not all. Ever since they met, the lady's been weirdly nice to him. He doesn't see Lunacis as the kind of person who'd admire someone just because they're selfless. But before the Sword Saint can answer, a big werewolf appears. As the werewolf lunges at them, Fildo immediately prepares to fight. However, Lunacis asks him to step back and strikes the wolf with her sword. Then, she turns to face the point gifter, who sees that the monster is still alive. With no time to waste, Fildo comes at the big werewolf with his blade and kills it, getting mad at Lunacis for being reckless and wanting her to forget what he just asked her. Fildo knows Lunacis has her own reasons, and he won't force her to tell him what those are if she doesn't want to. He also realizes that he overstepped his boundaries, so he apologizes to the lady. Lunacis wants Fildo to know the real her, but she'll only share that with him when the right time comes. For now, they must continue and enter the Mist Labyrinth. After that, Lunacis walks off silently, and Fildo only gets even more confused. Then, she asks for Fildo's hand, for the elven country is just around the corner. Without saying anything, the point gifter holds Lunacis's hand, knowing that the right time will come and believing it won't be far off. Upon entering the labyrinth, Lunacis instructs Fildo to move closer to her. Inside the Mist Labyrinth, one can easily lose their companion if they step away. Simply put, it can be dangerous if they wander off. Well, Fildo can tell Lunacis's distance just from her voice. He thinks she's just making an excuse to get close to him, only to realize he's wrong when he almost falls into a hole. Thankfully, Lunacis manages to grab him, saying he should be careful since there are some places with no ground. Moments later, Lunacis and Fildo reach the country of the elves. Understandably, the point gifter can't help but be in awe. The two then start moving closer to the gates, and while doing so, Fildo expresses admiration for the beautiful place. As they walk through a field, Fildo thanks Lunacis for bringing him there. He wants to do something for her to show his gratitude, but forming a party with her is a big no-no. When the lady asks for a kiss as a reward, Fildo flat out refuses. Irritated, Lunacis forcefully tries to kiss the point gifter, not seeing any reason why he should decline. Thanks to that, our boy starts to panic. Suddenly, they're interrupted by two girls with pointed ears, Danon and Sana. They're elves! The kids are happy to see Lunacis, and the Sword Saint is glad she ran into them too. Naturally, the girls want to know who Fildo is. They wonder if he's Lunacis's boyfriend, but the lady says they're not in that kind of relationship yet. "I knew it!" the point gifter exclaims. "You didn't just know them!" At this point, Lunacis removes the gem in her earring, revealing her pointed ears. Yep, she's an elf too. But Lunacis doesn't elaborate and simply leads Fildo to the kingdom, where he admires everything he sees. He can't believe that elves really have long and pointed ears, and aside from that, both men and women are ridiculously good-looking. Fildo then remembers Lunacis thinking she wasn't attractive enough while they were in the forest. But now, he knows she was just acting. Anyway, Fildo lets Lunacis know that her level may have gone up a bit. Sure enough, the Sword Saint's body feels lighter. It's rare to find someone who can analyze, but Fildo guesses her experience has been amplified since they've formed a temporary partnership. Lunacis thought for sure that she couldn't get any stronger, so she thanks Fildo for it while the girls point out she's already strong enough. But she's not done yet. No. As Fildo follows Lunacis and the girls, he notices some sick elves and asks his companions about it. As it turns out, the elves were in a hurry the other day while discussing the magic power of the forest and how it was drying up. Also, the girls reveal that Illumina, Lunasis' sister, collapsed. Illumina is a much better magic user than Lunasis, and more gentle than anyone, and for that, her sister is proud of her. Curious, Fildo asks where Illumina is. Lunasis assumes he wants to know because he's worried about them, but Fildo explains that he owes her a favor for bringing him to the elven country. The least he can do is go with her and make sure everything is all right. Besides, he's an outsider. He knows it won't be good for him if they just leave him there. Meanwhile, one of the girls asks Fildo if he's really not Lunasis' boyfriend. Annoyed, the point gifter stresses that he isn't, which the kids think is a pity. Of course, the lady agrees with them, but she's done teasing Fildo for today. Eventually, Lunasis and Fildo reach the palace. One of the guards is surprised that the princess has returned, but what shocks him even more is the fact that she's with a human. Lunasis introduces Fildo as her lover, but the point gifter quickly clarifies he's just her acquaintance. That aside, Lunasis makes it clear that Fildo is their guest, so the guard should refrain from being disrespectful. On their way to see the king, Lunasis apologizes to Fildo because in a minute, he might see something unsightly. In the throne room, the king and his vassals are busy reviewing their records and crossing out most of them. When one of the elves announces Lunasis' arrival, the elven king, Gaius, drops what he's doing and approaches his daughter before slapping her. He can't believe that Lunasis has the nerve to come back, especially after she put all of her responsibilities on her sister. Because of what she did, Illumina has become ill with a disease. For the trouble she's caused, Lunasis deeply apologizes. Sad to say, the Elven King doesn't think her apology can do anything to change the situation. This time, Lunasis fires back and says they're long past the point where they can do anything on their own. There's no future if they continue to rely solely on the wisdom of their country, and Lunasis is sure that her father already knows this. Since Lunasis is willing to go that far, King Gaius assumes that she's found a solution to their problem. As the princess fails to answer, the Elven King tells her to stop being so conceited. Lunasis got all so worked up, but her father wants to know what she's actually done on her own. She put the lives of their people at risk, and on top of that, she let an outsider into their country. The Elven King demands to know who Lunasis is with, wondering if she brought a king consort candidate. Explaining that Fildo is just her dear friend, Lunasis asks her father to stop making such statements. King Gaius then asks Fildo what he thinks of their country, and the point gifter answers honestly. At first, he thought that place was beautiful and mysterious, but he noticed that the elves didn't have an excellent complexion. The reason behind this is that the elven country is experiencing a severe depletion of magic power. As Fildo can see, the country is surrounded by forests where the elves get their life force. After gaining power, an elf will conceive a child, who will then grow up and return the magic to the forest. That's how their power circulates. Unfortunately, the elves' numbers have been greatly reduced by those after them, and as a result, the magic power of the forest began to dry up. The life force decreases as the magic power of the forest reduces, and the magic that the elves are supposed to give back decreases as well. Although elves have a long lifespan, their ability to reproduce is not as high. In other words, it's hard to increase the population. As of the moment, those with a lot of magic power offer it to the forests to maintain them. That is the current situation of the elven country. Initially, that role belonged to the first princess, Lunasis, but it's now Illumina's. King Gaius wants to know why Lunasis left their country, but again, the Sword Saint isn't able to answer. Turning his attention to the human, the Elven King thanks Fildo for bringing Lunasis back to their country, and in honor of his daughter, he'll allow him to stay for a few days. After that, King Gaius asks Lunasis to come with him and fulfill the responsibility she's forced upon Illumina. Seeing she has no other choice, the princess thanks Fildo for coming with her that far and confesses she was only trying to utilize his power. She knew how much he'd been wronged by his former guild, which is why when she heard he was looking for the country of the elves, she immediately seized the opportunity. Lunasis admits that what she did was awful, and in the end, all she did was bring trouble to those around her. Despite everything that happened, the Sword Saint really wishes she could show Fildo the wonderful things in their country. She then starts walking away with her father, only to be stopped by Fildo, who tells her she doesn't have to sacrifice herself. With his power, the point gifter vows to save the elven country. Fildo explains that his ability is to amplify the experience gained by the members of his party. The amplified experience is his, and he can distribute it however he pleases. The elven country's problem is that there's not enough magic power to sustain the power of the forest. To solve that, Fildo intends to use his ability to raise the level of the elves forcibly. By doing so, the individual magic power will increase, and the vitality of the forest will be restored. The point gifter can understand if King Gaius doesn't believe him, but he wants him to see that he's giving them a chance to save their country. Fildo begs the Elven King to let him use his ability for the sake of their kingdom, and at that moment, Lunacis's father is too stunned to speak. That night, Lunacis visits Illumina in her bedroom and feels bad for her. Then, Fildo calls her to the balcony, where he asks if he really can stay in that castle. The Sword Saint assures him that he can, and asks if something is bothering him, so he shares that he passed by a tall woman who kept staring at him a while ago. When Lunacis says that was her mother, Fildo can't even hide his surprise. Indeed, no one can tell how old an elf is just by looking at them. Anyway, Lunacis's mother was probably staring at Fildo because it's been a long time since anyone from that country has seen a human being. That aside, the princess apologizes to Fildo for the inconvenience she's caused. She left the elven country to find a solution outside of the knowledge that elves have, but slowly, she got tired of searching. She admits that she tried to be close to Fildo since she found his ability interesting, making the point gifter wonder if that's really what it was all about. Lunacis did something foolish, but still, Fildo has chosen to help the elves. Why? Well, no particular reason. But if he has to say it, it would be like thanking Lunacis for bringing him to the elven country. For Fildo, it would be wrong to lose such a beautiful country. He's not really sure himself, but he knows that family and home are important. Besides, one should help a member of their party if they're in trouble, right? That's what being an adventurer is all about, Fildo adds, putting a smile on the Sword Saint's face. Moments later, the Elven King approaches and orders Fildo to follow him. He leads Fildo deep into the castle, so naturally the point gifter starts to worry. Then, King Gaius notes that Fildo's sword looks like it's reaching its limits. That's what happens when one slays a dragon and werewolves with that kind of blade. Fildo isn't sure why Lunacis's father suddenly mentioned his sword, but before he can even ask, King Gaius instructs him to stop walking. Using his magic, the Elven King opens a tall set of doors. He goes inside the room and tells a terrified Fildo to come quickly, saying that place is the treasury. It stores magic tools that have undergone magical modifications. Sadly, almost no one is left in that country to handle the hidden treasures anymore. King Gaius wants to talk to Fildo about the ability he spoke of earlier, curious as to where he'll get the experience if what he's saying is true. Fildo explains that for the amplification, it's necessary to target monsters with a reasonable amount of experience. He's learned from Lunacis that there are some big monsters in the northern plains from the palace, which they could defeat to gain some experience. Despite what Fildo said, the Elven King is still not impressed by his plan. Even if he and Lunacis manage to defeat the monsters, the amount of amplification they'll get is far from ideal. What the king means is that the point gifter needs party members and a good weapon. That said, he offers to give Fildo the holy sword Excalibur, a hidden treasure that's been handed down in their country. In addition, King Gaius will have 100 men assist him. Of course, Fildo refuses to accept such a grand weapon. "I told you there's no one left who can handle this," says King Gaius as he looks at Fildo with sadness in his eyes. The elves have been researching for a long time, but they haven't found a solution until today. Kneeling, Lunacis's father admits he's asking too much from Fildo and that he's a powerless king. He then begs the point gifter to save their country, and thankfully, our boy changes his mind and finally accepts the sword. Later, Lunacis lets Fildo know that she and the rest of their team are ready to go. Outside the palace, the captain of the Order of the Knights, Agate, introduces himself to Fildo. The Elven King has already told them about the mission, but Fildo is too nervous to talk to them because he's just an outsider. Laughing, Agate assures him they'll follow him no matter what happens. After all, this is the Order of the King. When asked if he doesn't feel uncomfortable to follow someone so young, the captain points out that every race is like a child to a grown-up elf like him. It's not like it's important, though. Right now, it's not age or race that matters, only results. Behind Fildo, Lunacis reminds him that he's the leader of that squad and urges him to give a brief word to everyone before they start the operation. To be honest, the point gifter feels like it might be a big deal to have an outsider like him leading all the elves. However, after seeing some of the amazing places in this country and meeting its people, It's become clear to him how much he wants to protect it. With the knight's help, Fildo believes they can save the elven country. Moreover, he expects a good effort from all of them. Wasting no time, the knights head to the northern plains, bearing in mind that the future of their country depends on their performance. After days of traveling, Lunasis suggests they take a short break because the knights are already exhausted. Agate notes that despite all the walking over the last few days, the point gifter shows no sign of breathlessness at all. He and the other knights, on the other hand, are beat, and they can only hope that they won't become a hindrance when the situation calls for it. A few minutes later, Lunasis checks their map and deduces that they should have reached their destination by now. Just to be sure, Agate asks Fildo to use his Analyze skill to also see where the monsters are. Immediately, the point gifter analyzes the area and gets confused, because although he's able to identify the monster, his skill tells him it's there the whole time. He then asks Lunasis to cut through the ground, admitting he's hesitant to do it himself since he's carrying a valuable sword that belongs to the elves. Just like him, Agate doesn't want to damage his sword by trying to slash the ground. Luckily, Lunasis doesn't refuse and immediately makes cracks in the ground using her sword. When nothing happens, Fildo shares he thought that the monster was lurking under them or something. But then, the entire place shakes violently, so Agate orders the knights to run toward the lower ground. At this point, Fildo realizes that the monster isn't hiding underground. The whole mountain range is, in fact, the monster. Since the monster looks like a dragon with no wings, Fildo assumes it's some kind of a dinosaur. Lunasis has heard of big monsters, but she admits that not to that extent. As Fildo asks Agate about the other knights, he learns that he somehow managed to prevent them from dispersing even though they were panicking. Still, their mission is not something that can be done with just a number of people. It's just ridiculous to go up against that dinosaur. The monster hasn't noticed them yet, so Fildo and the others quickly think of a plan. First of all, they should remember that this is not like a regular monster-slaying task. Wanting to get the dinosaur's attention before it starts to move, Fildo orders the captain to make sure his men don't disperse before instructing Lunasis to continue the attack. All of a sudden, the dinosaur roars and leads Fildo to think that it's too slow and big to feel pain. Again, the point gifter notices that the monster still hasn't seen them and tells Lunasis and Agate to rally the troops. "Everyone, get behind me!" With that, Fildo prepares to charge at the dinosaur. At the same time, he recalls the Elven King saying that Excalibur wasn't meant to be wielded by those without power. King Gaius believed that Fildo might be able to bring the sword to its full potential, so before the point gifter left, he advised him to focus his mind on the blade. Now, Fildo thinks of nothing else and comes at the dinosaur, confident that the sword will do the rest. With a single hit, Fildo manages to injure the monster. Naturally, the knights can't believe what they've just witnessed. As the dinosaur thrashes around, Fildo informs the princess that he'll do his best to draw the monster's attention. But he can't protect all the knights if they're scattered, so he wants her to look after them. In a flash, Fildo runs toward the creature again. He doesn't want the fight to drag on, but right now, the only thing he can do is keep attacking the monster using Excalibur's slash of light. The elves are amazed that the dinosaur is getting more injuries by the minute and start to cheer, believing they can finish their mission. Agate doesn't say anything, but he knows that the fight is far from over. Sure enough, Fildo realizes that light blades alone only work on the surface of the dinosaur's skin. To put it simply, he needs to come up with something else. Then, the monster opens its mouth, and the point gifter almost falls into it. As he holds on to the edge of the dinosaur's mouth, Fildo thinks about striking at the most vulnerable area with maximum firepower. In the end, he chooses to let go, and a horrified Lunasis can only watch as the monster swallows him whole. With his mind on the blade, Fildo activates his skill called Holy Breaker and delivers a powerful strike from inside the creature's body. Finally, the point gifter defeats the monster. While the knights celebrate his victory, Lunasis sees that Fildo is falling. He's unable to move his whole body, and his stamina and magic power are drained. If he dies now, it will be all for nothing. As Fildo nears the ground, the princess rushes to catch him. She begs him to stay awake, but the first thing he asks is if he really managed to kill the monster. He just wants to confirm that he isn't dreaming. In that case, Lunasis offers to give him some potion by mouth, but Fildo only chuckles and says he can drink it himself. After that, Lunasis asks him to get up and see for himself that he successfully killed the dinosaur. Upon returning to the palace, Fildo amplifies the experience he's gained from killing the monster and distributes it, raising the elves' levels and restoring their health. Lunasis immediately hugs her sister when she sees her out of bed, and it isn't long before their father embraces them too. As King Gaius cries while holding his daughters in his arms, Fildo happily looks at the now bright kingdom. Afterward, King Gaius talks to his wife, Lunalia, and says it will never be enough, even if he spends his whole life being grateful to Fildo. Perhaps living too long isn't that great, for his senses have become dull and stiff. He thinks that Lunasis was correct all along, but Lunalia argues that's not true because the artifacts they've made prolonged the lives of their people. The queen wants King Gaius to keep in mind that both he and Lunasis didn't give up, and thanks to that, everyone was saved. As he watches their people, the Elven King wonders where the man of the hour is. He'd very much love to talk about welcoming him into their family as a son-in-law, which surprises his wife. Unknown to him, the point gifter has already left the castle. He plans to get out of there without telling anyone, but Lunasis catches up to him and informs him he forgot his mantle. Thanking the princess, Fildo takes his mantle and asks Lunasis why she's dressed like she's ready for a trip. Actually, it's so that she can follow him. Also, she's curious how Fildo will get out of the mist labyrinth by himself. Although she's glad that the point gifter helped them, Lunasis states that the elven country is not yet completely saved. It's only miraculously recovered because of Fildo, but there are still a lot of things the princess needs to do out there for them to get back on their feet. Anyway, the Sword Saint praises Fildo for being strong, but at the same time she scolds him for pulling off something big without even thinking about it. She's sure he would have died if he'd hit his head, telling the point gifter she needs him to live a long and healthy life. Is it because she needs Fildo's power? No. It's because she wants to be with him, even if only for a while. That remark makes our boy blush, so he just turns around to hide his face. As the two talk, Illumina suddenly shows up, looking like she's never been sick in the first place. Meanwhile, the Light of Glory struggles to fight low-level monsters. They were once the strongest guild in the country, but now they tremble as they face giant rats. Why the hell is this happening? Claude asks himself, as if they didn't mistreat the person who contributed the most to their team. Years ago, Claude's guild leader called him to introduce a boy he took in from the orphanage they stopped at the other day. The kid would be their young worker, and the guild leader wanted Claude to make sure he was prepared so he wouldn't die doing chores. Of course, Claude was irritated that he had to train the boy, only to be laughed at by the leader and teased that he finally had a little brother. With no other choice, Claude asked the kid his name, and the boy introduced himself as Fildo. In the present, Bobson carries an injured Claude in the street. Carl notices that he's already awake, telling Bobson to move quickly because they might get caught. Disoriented, the guild leader notes that his arm is hurt and his face is burning. Dorothy is surprised that he doesn't remember what happened, recounting how he got bitten while taking down a giant rat in the underground irrigation canal. They took that quest because Claude said it was a low-level one, but instead, he was almost eaten alive, and they were forced to retreat. As for his facial injuries, he got into a dispute with a client who didn't hesitate to fight back. Honestly, Claude would have died if the military police hadn't come. That's the reason why Dorothy told him they shouldn't do the quest. Aside from the fact that they're already weak, that quest was someone else's. Eventually, they return to their guild, and all Claude can think about is how they failed to complete the quest. Inside, one adventurer asks Claude where he found the dealers and doesn't even wait for his response. The truth is that he's fine with anything as long as he gets paid. He and his comrades then continue drinking, pissing Dorothy off since she's sure those men will stay there until their money runs out. Those who remain are all like that, though, and there's nothing Claude and the others can do about it. In Claude's office, Carl attempts to heal the guild leader's wounds. However, it doesn't seem to be working at all. They just have to accept that all their powers have been taken away, and that they're back to their original levels. After a few minutes, Carl manages to stop the bleeding somehow. He tells Claude that any more than that will require a visit to a healer at the clinic, which makes Dorothy snap. All this time, they've been trying to push their way through by force, and as a result, they don't even remember how to fight as adventurers. The rat's extermination quest should be a simple job for a novice adventurer, and yet, they had to flee. The mage can't help but blame Bobson, who got scared and screamed, which is why the monsters were alerted. In Bobson's defense, the only kind of weapon he can handle now is a club. Before, they were able to do well because everyone was so strong. They had the strongest magical support and almost infinite recovery magic that could heal any injury in no time. As Bobson cries, Carl recalls that originally, he was never that strong-willed. On the other hand, Dorothy mentions the guild's overdue taxes and their members' salaries. They also have to think about their debts and, most importantly, the possibility that the country will order them to disband. As much as she hates to admit it, Dorothy is certain that the light of glory will finally come to an end. When things were going well, Carl thought that the guild would go on forever. He admits he never thought it would end in such a miserable way. But for Claude, it's not over yet. He strongly believes that the light of glory can still start over, refusing to let a single mistake ruin them. Sad to say, the mage thinks otherwise. Claude, for God's sake, get a grip on reality. But what about their dream of making the light of glory the top guild in the whole world? Are they just going to throw that away? Carl stresses that it's no longer possible, and Bobson adds that it only seemed that way because they were so elated at the time. It's not even about their powers. They were just so full of themselves. There's so much the guild needs to pay for, but all that remains in the light of glory is a bunch of deadbeat, money-grubbing adventurers. There isn't a trace of the top guild left anywhere anymore. Still, it was a miracle that they made it that far in just 3 years. Dorothy then asks her comrades what they'd do if their guild were to disappear. In Carl's case, he'll open a healing massage parlor. Even if he can't heal an injury, he can at least help soothe a hip or back pain. Bobson then says he's going back to his hometown. He's been worried about his mother for a long time because she is all alone and weak. When it's Dorothy's turn to share her plans, she reveals that she's done being a mage for good. After all, there's no demand for her ineffective spells. As everyone can see, Dorothy only has her pretty face. She figured she'd get close with some random reach person or aristocrat, surprising Carl and Bobson. Hearing that, Claude asks Dorothy if she's just going to leave him. The mage wants Claude to understand that there's no point for two unemployed people to keep seeing each other, but she admits that they both have bad personalities, so their chemistry isn't that bad. However, that's all in the past now. Because Claude's lost everything, nothing's attractive about him anymore. Dorothy is certain that the guy is aware of this. She can't believe that Claude attacked some people in the street and even took them hostage, emphasizing that they weren't punished by the king because Fildo didn't testify against them. Dorothy isn't sure if the point gifter was just naive or not, but whatever the case, that naivety is what saved their lives. For her, they should just let it go. With that, Dorothy bids Claude goodbye and starts walking away. It's been fun so far, but that is the end. This is where Carl excuses himself too. Despite their short time as a guild, he's grateful for everything Claude has done for them. He then urges Bobson to leave with them, and the big guy admits he's been saving up some money from his adventuring days, so he could just stay with his mother. Unfortunately, as Bobson and Carl talk about their other plans, Claude suddenly loses it. Afterward, the adventurers downstairs see the guild leader leaving. The guy who greeted him earlier wonders why he's so quiet, only to spit his drink out when someone shouts from upstairs. The adventurer went there to ask the executives, Dorothy and the others, to pay for their drinks, but he didn't expect to find them dead. In the Elven Kingdom, Fildo watches Lunasis as she practices swinging her weapon. Then, he asks the princess what she thinks of his sword, to which she replies that it's their national treasure. She states that it's incredibly powerful with a sharp blade that's unparalleled, but that's not what the point gifter meant. Actually, he wanted to ask Lunasis what she thought of his swordsmanship. How does it look like to the sword saint? First of all, Lunasis acknowledges that Fildo is very strong. In terms of swordsmanship, the princess thinks there's still a lot of room for growth. If only he'd mastered the ideal swordsmanship, even his old sword wouldn't have been damaged. Although Fildo was able to defeat the dinosaur called Gigarex the other day, Lunasis thinks he failed to target more effective spots. If the point gifter is trying to reduce mobility, it's recommended to go for the base of the fin. When Fildo asks if targeting the eyes won't be better, the lady explains it could cause a lot of damage to the surrounding area if the dinosaur lost its vision and went on a rampage. Realizing Lunasis is right, Fildo asks her to teach him how to fight with a sword. No matter how high his status is, he has far too little experience as an adventurer. He doesn't want to rely on the abilities he got after taking back all the experience he'd lent to his old guild. But instead, he wants to become stronger as an adventurer. Unknown to Fildo, Claude killed the other members of the Light of Glory. The guild leader has lost everything, and the only person he blames is the point gifter. After being miserable for so long, Fildo is slowly checking things off his bucket list. He's finally reached the mysterious elven country, and aside from that, he helped save its people too. He has all the time in the world to do as he pleases, but he should remember that somewhere out there, someone would do anything to bring him down. That said, Fildo must always be ready, for he doesn't know what the future holds for him. This is a story of Fildo and his group after their return to the country of elves. The king of elves stands in front of them and tells them that he knows all of them have suffered so much, but they have also persevered. He tells the elves that there will be a national celebration at a later date for them, and the day will be a national holiday for elves, which will be passed down from generation to generation. The elves cheer happily as they hear the king of elves' speech. The king of elves sees that Master Fildo must have been tired after the long expedition. He tells Fildo that there are hot springs in the royal palace, so he should go there for a nice soak and have a good night's rest. The king also tells him they will get his clothes in order while he bathes, and Fildo thanks the king. At the large royal elven palace hot spring, Fildo stays inside, enjoying the feel of the water. He thinks of how it feels like paradise as he relaxes into the water. Fildo tells a girl who is in the hot springs with him that it is going to be hard for his clothes to dry with the humidity in the spring, but the girl tells him that they dry their clothes on a bedrock heated by geothermal heat, and that is the reason why the fabric of elf clothes is so thin. The girl pours water into a cup for Fildo and tells him the water is collected from trees in the forest, so it is cold and slightly sweet. Fildo thanks her for the drink and plans to enjoy the cold water seeping through his feverish body until he opens his eyes and realizes the girl with him is Illumina. He is shocked and asks her why she is there with him, but she smiles and tells him that she thought to wash his back since he is there. Illumina asks if she is a nuisance, but Fildo tells her that she isn't a nuisance, but he wants to know why she is interested in washing his back. Illumina explains that since Fildo helped save the lives of elves and also saved her life, it is only natural for her to want to show her gratitude to her benefactor for what he has done. Fildo does not understand her, and she asks if he finds her unattractive because she is sick and doesn't have a great body like her sister, but Fildo tells her it isn't like that. He does not find her unattractive, and he appreciates the gesture, but he is just surprised by it. While they are talking, Lunasis runs into the hot springs and screams at seeing Fildo together with Illumina. She asks Illumina why she is with Fildo, and Illumina tells her she wants to help Fildo wash his back. Lunasis shouts at Illumina and tells her she can't wash Fildo's back. Then she faces Fildo and begs him to let her wash his back instead. Without waiting for an answer, Lunasis starts washing Fildo's back. Illumina tells her it is unfair because Lunasis came in late, but Lunasis tells her it is because she ran out of her. As Lunasis washes Fildo's back, she asks him if it feels good, and he thanks her. Fildo tells her how it feels strange to have someone else wash his back, and she asks if he hasn't done it before. Fildo explains that he grew up in a house with a bunch of little kids who used to copy him when he washed his back, and Lunasis also remembers how she used to wash her father's back. Lunasis swoons as she tells Fildo that it feels like they have become a family, but realizing what she said, she quickly tells Fildo that she is not saying they should be a family right away, but if he is okay with it, then she would be more than happy to do it. Fildo listens to her till he falls asleep, and Illumina and Lunasis smile at him. At the Elven banquet, Mr. Fildo, the savior of their country, is told to put on the clothes he was given, but he thinks he doesn't need to wear them. After being convinced to put them on, Fildo wonders what it is all about. He also remembers how he hates being alone in unfamiliar clothes, but somehow he is conscious of how people look at him. Lunasis tells Fildo that the clothes he put on look so good on him, and he thanks her and says she flattered him. Illumina replies to Fildo that he looks cool, and that she only states the obvious. Illumina also tells Fildo that her body is filled with magic and energy, and when magic runs out, she doesn't think she will be able to move again. Fildo then asks Illumina where Lunasis is, and she replies that she was with her a while ago. The king asks Fildo if he had a good time, and he replies and says yes, that he did enjoy the feast. Then the king tells him that while the dinner is still going on, Fildo should spend his time as he wishes. The king also tells Fildo that what he is about to receive may be inadequate as a reward. Fildo then receives a sword from the king, and wonders how much it will be in the next 5 generations of the elves. Fildo also tells the king that the sword he was given alone is more than he could ever expect. The The king then tells Fildo that he would love to thank him from the bottom of his heart for saving them from what would have been their death in a decade or so. The king also tells Fildo that the forest is now supplied with magical power to sustain us for at least 5 generations. The king also presents a brooch to Mr. Fildo and tells him that it symbolizes the succession of the throne from the present king to the next. This brooch has been passed down from generation to generation. The king then grabs Fildo by the collar and tells him that since he is the country's savior, his feats will become a story that will be passed down for many years to come. The king then tells Fildo that the country is in a bad situation, and as Fildo is the light, that he will guide them in the future, as they will continue to work together to build the country. Then Illumina holds Fildo's hand and tells him to come along, because things won't get exciting if the star of the show isn't dancing. But Fildo says to her that he doesn't know how to dance, and Lunasis tells him that if he moves his feet to match hers, then he will be fine. Fildo is surprised to see Lunasis and asks her where she has been. Fildo doesn't know if it is because he is the only human, but notices he is constantly being watched, and this makes him nervous. The king asks Lunasis where Fildo is, and she tells her father that he is exhausted from being surrounded by everyone, so he went to rest for a bit. Lunasis tells her father to stop making such a bad joke, and her father asks if it sounds like a joke to her. Her father also tells her the only thing left for him to do is to swear an oath, and then he could announce it to everyone. The king tells Lunasis that he knows she initially approached him with that intention, even though Fildo has to wield his power by his own will. He also tells Lunasis that Fildo's equipment is under the bed where he got dressed. Lunasis then replies and tells her father that she won't let him interfere with Fildo's freedom, and that is the only way she can repay Fildo for his help. The king then tells Lunasis that from what he has seen, Fildo is somewhat amiable, and that if she is getting dismayed by this level of pushback, she'll have a hard time in the future. Lunasis then replies that she understands and that if it happens, she'll stand down. The king then tells Lunasis that he wishes her all the best in repaying the favor. The king also tells his daughter that whatever it takes to set a connection, whether it's a favor or a relationship, this is where the country welcomes him. There is a triumphant return of the Order of the Knights as the Knight Commander is in the country, and crowds are outside, making it hard to walk. Fildo is surprised at the influence the commander has on the people, and asks if being a Knight Commander is that great. Fildo is then told that the Knight Commander is the top soldier in the country's army. It is the day of the beginning, and Fildo is told that the skills he wishes to learn are not directly related to strength, and it's a skill big guilds will surely want. The guild also tells him that he believes Fildo has learned how to use Analyze. Fildo then asks how high the level of the Knight Commander is, and he is told that it is 68. He is mocked that he hasn't even reached double digits and asks Claude what level he is at. Claude then tells him he is at a 6. Fildo says he could share his experience with the 2 guild members by tracing his fingers so that they could both be strong. The 2 guild members then guess that this is another effect of Analyze. The guild members also think that it's a hell of an ability to share his experience with someone else. So one of the guild members then says he can't believe that their experience keeps going up simply because Fildo is there, and he asks the other guild if he has heard about such a thing, and he replies that there is no way possible. One of the guild members says Fildo will be one hell of an adventurer, and he will be passing them in the blink of an eye. But since they are the ones who found the guy's power, there is no reason not to use it. He also says that if he had the kid called Fildo, he wouldn't have to be a member of this stupid guild, and it is not just a dream that they can create the best guild in that country. The other guild member then replies and says he knows about his vision and wants to support it too, but says it is up to him to decide how he wants to live with that power, because it is not their place to tell Fildo what to do, and with such non-standard abilities, he also says that although Fildo is still young, they will protect him until he understands his power. But the other guild member says he is worried Fildo might be abused, and then pushes his partner off the cliff. Some guild members come and report to others that Uar was dead, and one of them says it happened when the demons surrounded them, and he fell down the cliff. So then Bobson asks what they should do, and he is told to calm down for now, and wait until morning, and then return to the guild. Fildo is also told not to tell anyone about his abilities, because Uar is worried about him until the end. Then he says he will make good use of his powers for his sake, and they will make the strongest guild in the world. Fildo is behaving unusually, and when one of the guild members notices, he asks if something is wrong because Fildo seemed lost in thought earlier. Still, he says he is just a little spaced out. Then a small boy who is also with them on the journey sees a castle, and asks if that is their destination as he runs towards it. The experience destination ability is the ability to distribute one's experience to party or guild members, and by the time Light of Glory becomes the top guild, Fildo Electria has been banished from the guild. Fildo decides to live a free solo life as he continues his journey, but by a strange turn of events, he goes to the land of the elves with the sword of Saint Lunas. In addition, when there is a person with an ability in the party, it amplifies the experience gained by that member. As his journey continues, he is accompanied by 2 elves, Princess Sister Lunasis and Illumina. A shocking development after a momentary break as a saleswoman is seen in a market who tells her customer not to touch the goods carelessly since they are for sale. It is Illumina's first time in a human country, and Fildo tells her to look at the accessories. Fildo is glad that the Sword Saint's sister is also enjoying herself. A man approaches Fildo and tells him he knows he is no ordinary man, but never thought he would be partying with the sword. Saint Lunas, and Fildo replies and says that it is not like that. Fildo also tells the man that the party he is in is a temporary contract. Then the man asks him if he isn't that great, and tells him that the best part is that he can share the sights he has seen with his companions and good friends, and good journeys can help a person grow in evidence, and he says Fildo will look a lot more like an adventurer than he was before. Fildo tells the man that he and Lunasis have only met a few months ago, and like an adventurer, and all he is just doing what he has always wanted to do. Fildo also says that it is not the time that matters, but rather the experience, and he has been wondering about that for a while now. When the man sees a sword on Fildo's back, he asks if he can look at the sword on his back. When the man checks out the sword, he says it is wonderful, and asks where Fildo got such a work of art. Fildo then tells the man that the sword was given to him for various reasons. The man tells Fildo that the details are also amazing and probably enchanted. He also tells him that dwarves often design this kind of equipment, which could be one of them, but Fildo is shocked when he hears dwarves. The man then tells Fildo that the dwarves are all blacksmiths by nature, and the armor of the hammer is usually enchanted like this. He also says that even if they have the same form as the dwarf armor, the market price will vary by more than one figure. But Fildo shouts again when he hears dwarves. Then Illumina asks him if he is interested in the dwarf country, to which he replies, of course, and tells her it is necessary to suddenly speak from behind. Lunasis asks the man what is with the grin, and he says he actually has a close relationship with the dwarf country, and they are old acquaintances of his father, and he has met them too. Still in the middle of their conversation, another man interrupts and says the dwarf country has workshops where the best craftsmen's skills are gathered since they are strict about entry. Fildo would have been turned away as a first-time visitor, let alone a human. Illumina then asks that since the dwarf government is not hiding, what is the fuss about? Then Fildo replies that you don't say, but asks what if the sisters requested a visit in person. Then Lunasis asks him if he wants to enter the dwarf country, but Fildo looks shocked. Fildo and the elven sisters are supposed to be back at the inn before the sun goes down, and when one of the sisters asks if Mr. Fildo is coming with them, Fildo says that no, since the sisters are together, and tells them to tour the city instead, and make use of this perfect opportunity to learn about life in a human country. Lunasis tells her sister not to let her go because many people are there. Illumina then tells her sister she is treating her like a child again, and Lunasis thinks that even her sister knows how much magic she has as an adventurer. She can at least protect herself and just wants to hold hands with Illumina. Lunasis says she wonders if it is still too early for her to know if Illumina can shoot strong magic, which is not necessary as a strength. All she has to do is hold hands with Illumina. Then she says she couldn't help but feel a bit flustered whenever she is with Mr. Fildo, and well, if her sister said so, it couldn't be helped. Fildo then says he will also go to check out some of the other stores. Lunasis asks Illumina if she knows where she can find the flower shop, and she says she knows. Brother Fildo is an adventurer, and she thinks so because he is carrying a cool sword. She then asks him if he has ever killed a giant monster or something like a big mountain, and they remember what Mama used to say, that adventurers sometimes try to show off and report things out of proportion to what they are. And that is a problem. Their Mama knows all this because she works as a receptionist at the guild. Their Mama's birthday was that day, so she wanted to go to the flower shop alone. She goes out secretly and wonders if her Mama is mad, but Fildo tells her that Mama is not mad because she is probably apprehensive about her. But if she can apologize adequately, she will forgive her. He says he is sure she will be happy with the gift she wants to get for Mama. If Mama is going to be mad at her, then she might as well be mad at him too, and he urges her not to be afraid. He says it was great that she bought the flowers and guesses he would have to call the military police, and she asks him if there was a station nearby. Someone comes by and tells Fildo that it's been a long time and he has grown into a fine-looking man. He says he is partying with the Sword Saint now and abandoning them and spending every day with a hottie. Yikes. And that is quite an excellent adventurous life, which was the reason he was there. But Fildo is so confused and asks the man what he is talking about, that he is the one who kicked him out of the guild. It has been through a lot since then, and the king has been asking because the guild has been suspended. In the end, the guild is dissolved, and those guys then Fildo cuts into what Claude was talking about, those guys of Dorothy and the others, and asks him what happened to them all. And he answers and says they were gone because the Light of Glory was disbanded. They went separate ways as well, and he thought that they were a bunch of jerks and didn't necessarily need to be involved with him anymore, said Fildo. He thought and said it was revenge. How can a point gifter who manipulates others be so happy someone like Fildo had to crawl on the ground like a low insect because of everything? And he said it was his fault. Then Claude asked him and said the look on his face didn't look like he wanted to kill him. And Fildo asks him why he had to go so far, but Fildo tells him he could forgive him for everything he did, so it's just minor harassment and a way to vent frustration. As long as he can see his face wring in pain, he doesn't care about anything anymore, as he considers that Claude was not with his knife. Then Illumina asks her big brother Fildo if he is not hurt anywhere. Claude, the leader of the guild, is seen arguing with Fildo that he is the main reason the king suspended their guild, one of the country's most robust and powerful guilds, because of what happened. Claude is disappointed that all his guild members have separated from his team. Then the visit to Fildo is held for him as they were both seen fighting with each other's swords. But Claude escapes into the alley without a second thought, as Fildo calls the military police for him. And as people come around, Fildo is asked if he is okay or needs to be still. Fildo says he needs to chase Claude. The man also tells Fildo not to be reckless since he is injured and cannot pursue a person in his state. As Fildo tries to stand up, he sees blood gushing out of his body, and the man tells him to get a hold of himself. Fildo then says he has difficulty breathing, that he is feeling cold, that he is shivering but cannot stop sweating. A knight is now with Fildo, and he believes that it could be poison, and that there is still a chance to save Fildo's life. The knight then tells Fildo to hold a necklace tightly to his chest and never let it go. In the dead of night, a young boy is jolted from his sleep by a harrowing nightmare. The dream has painted a disturbing picture of Claude relentlessly chasing him. His heart races as he bolts upright in bed, and his breathing labors as his wide eyes dart around the darkened room. They settle on an enigmatic silhouette shrouded in shadow, a man standing at the foot of his bed. The boy's initial shock and fear grip him even tighter as he tries to make sense of the intruder's presence. Fildo cannot believe the man knows his name, and then he immediately senses that he is in the guild's restroom. The man's name is Leonardo, and as he continues to share insights, mentioning that they had been fierce rivals with Glory's guild. As a result, information about rival guilds like Glory's naturally found its way to his ears. And as Fildo feels the weight of the conversation, he has a dry throat. Understanding Fildo's discomfort, Leonardo promptly offers him a glass of water to quench his thirst. Leonardo tells Fildo that he has been asleep for 3 days, so it's understandable he looks confused. Leonardo also tells Fildo that despite neutralizing the poison, his body went through a significant burden, and his comrades were worried. In the middle of their conversation, Fildo remembers that before he became unconscious, a little girl was around him, and then he asks Leonardo if she got injured or anything. Fildo also tells Leonardo that this little girl may have accidentally touched his blood or something, and the poison could affect her. But Leonardo laughs at him and tells Fildo not to worry because the little girl is fine. While Fildo is talking to Leonardo, a doctor comes in to examine him, and Fildo thanks the doctor for saving his life. The doctor then tells Fildo that the poison he received was made from the fang of the red serpent and the venom gland of the Madara snail, after which he gives him a concoction made from various ingredients, including a poisonous mushroom. The doctor also tells Fildo that the concoction could disrupt his sense of balance and then cause paralysis of his respiratory system. He also tells Fildo that the poison would have killed any other person. After confirming that Fildo is only alive because he has far greater physical endurance than any normal person. Leonardo tells Fildo that he is very interested in his powers, but Fildo tells him he is only a point gifter. Then Leonardo reminds Fildo that though he may not be aware of the exact details of his powers, he is opportune that information about rival guilds naturally reaches his ears. Leonard also tells Fildo that the fact that Light of Glory reached the top guild within a few years is because of Fildo's powers, and he struggles to understand why Claude abandoned him. Leonardo then tells Fildo that he would have let him go if it was him. He then asks Fildo if he has heard anything about Claude, but Fildo replies that he hasn't had the chance to stop in town in the last few months. As the man continues his revelations, he discloses that Claude is presently a fugitive on the wanted list, his name sullied by the shadow of criminality. Leonardo, his curiosity piqued, inquires whether this recent development is linked to the events that had transpired during that time. However, the man clarifies that the cause of Claude's newfound notoriety is not connected to their past encounters. Instead, it is a direct consequence of a recent and graver incident. Claude stands accused of a heinous crime, the murder of 3 former guild executives, which has catapulted him onto the wanted list, eliciting a collective sense of shock and dismay. It is speculated that there was some dispute when the guild dissolution was decided, then he probably managed to enter the royal capital before the wanted poster circulated. Leonardo continues that he had tracked down Claude right after Fildo was attacked, but he managed to escape. Frankly, Claude is currently dangerous. He also says that Claude's highly irrational behavior was because he had nothing to lose on his side. Leonardo also says that Claude is exhibiting an abnormal obsession with Leonardo, which will likely make contact again. Unfazed by Leonardo's initial shock, Fildo continues to delve into the matter. He probes further, wondering if Leonardo would be open to considering membership within the enigmatic ranks of the Silver Blade. Fildo repeats the word "me" with a questioning expression. Leonardo explains that if Claude's goal is revenge against him, then belonging to some kind of organization would be a good measure. Leonardo adds that their guild is well known, and he is proud to say there is no better place to take refuge than with them. Though it's just a facade, he admits Fildo's abilities are such that a guild established only a few years ago has rapidly risen to prominence, yet says that as for him, he would love to have it. Leonardo then asks what Fildo thinks, calling him by his full name. Fildo struggles to answer. Leonardo places his hand on Fildo's shoulder, then squeezes his cheeks and tells Fildo he can get him the money, the position, everything. Just tell him what he wants. Their welfare benefits are excellent, and the bonuses are plentiful. Fildo is stammering as the pressure intensifies. Leonardo pleads for Fildo to try it out just a little as a trial. Leonardo's subordinate panics that the water is going to spill and exclaims that it's not appropriate to be so aggressive towards someone right after they wake up. He adds that the current scene is seriously disturbing. Rapid footsteps echo through the hall as Lunasis runs toward the scene. She asks if Fildo really woke up. One of the Silverblade members says that he's currently talking with their guild leader. Lunasis bursts into the room, calling out to Fildo and asking if he's okay. She gasps and utters a surprised sound. A large shadow looms over the room as Leonardo hands Fildo a glass. A bunny-eared girl asks what's going on and calls for her, who is moving too fast. Lunasis glares with intense bloodlust and calls Leonardo a despicable scoundrel. Leonardo cuts in and tells her she has a strong bloodlust. Leonardo quickly disarms her and says that it's not something one should be rampaging around indoors. The girl cries out to her big sis. Leonardo says that so harsh out of nowhere, he was just inviting Fildo to join his guild. Lunasis tells him that it's no different from taking advantage of someone who is mentally and physically weakened. It is still malicious. Leonardo laughs and then points out that it would also apply to her, Sword Saint Lunasis. He comments that it seems like Lunasis was quite enthusiastic toward Fildo. She even accompanied Claude and the others, going as far as the royal capital to search for him. The one who never had a deep connection with anyone never showed a single smile. From the beginning, her intention was to get close to Fildo because of his abilities, wasn't it? He asks if she's not going to say she didn't mean it now. He reminds her that she is also one of the best adventurers out there and has probably heard rumors about Fildo in the high-ranking guilds, and becomes interested in him. Leonardo says that right now he is just scouting out a purely free adventurer, and there's nothing wrong in making a deal with a business partner. But what about her? He wonders if the objective was achieved. He questions if she used Fildo's good nature for that. Then the fact that Light of Glory was using him, he wonders what exactly is the difference between her and them. Fildo tells Leonardo to please apologize to her, but Leonardo asks why. He tells Fildo that he's the one who's being used, then mockingly remarks that it could be love. Now that would make sense. Fildo grips Leonardo's arm and tells him to shut up. Claude continues, saying that Lunasis is strong, but Fildo doesn't even know what is happening and is just saying whatever he wants. Leonardo asks him if he has any idea what she was going through when she needed his help. Phildo stops him and insists not to lump her with the likes of Claude. Lunasis reacts in silence. Leonardo gestures with his hands and tells him not to make such a scary face. He says that as for him, he could apologize if he'd like, but as a guild leader, he cannot simply just bow down his head. He laughs and says, "What a predicament." Phildo clenches his fist. Lunasis tries to calm him down, saying she'll be okay. However, he shouts that he's not okay at all. How he can stay silent when someone just says whatever they want. He acknowledges that the Sword Saint is certainly well regarded. Leonardo declares then, how about this? If he manages to beat Phildo in a challenge, he will retract his remarks to her and sincerely apologize. But if he wins, Phildo belongs to the Silver Blade, and it's a good workout for a drowsy body, right? Leonardo adds that this would not equate to a reward, so he'll give enough gold to keep them out of trouble for a while. Phildo confirms aloud that all he has to do is win, and they don't want anything from him except an apology. He does appreciate Leonardo helping him out, but still. Phildo clenches his teeth and shouts that he's not going to let Leonardo get away with that. The next day, on the training hall of the Silver Blade Guild, Leonardo asks if Phildo managed to rest properly after staying at his place for a while. Phildo replies with a yes. Leonardo says that is good to hear. He is glad he got to do this with him and is starting to feel a little inadequate with just the group members. Phildo tells him enough with the pretense. Leonardo comments that Phildo is impatient, and then says let's get started. Leonardo informs that the training hall has been cleared of people and says it's best for both of them to avoid drawing attention. Phildo thanks him for the concern. Phildo recalls what Lunasis told him yesterday, not to ever think of going easy on Leonardo. Of course, that goes without saying, but she guesses what she was trying to say is that she wants him to fight seriously. She asks if Phildo saw his level. Phildo reacts in surprise and confirms he did. He was certain of it after facing him a while ago. She declares that he is strong. Undoubtedly, he is the top class in this country. No matter how high Phildo's level may be, he must never let his guard down. Back to the present, it shows that Leonardo is the Silver Blade Guild leader, the strongest paladin with a level of 96. He then instructs Illumina to give a signal with magic. Illumina replies with an affirmative and casts Flare Bomb. Phildo starts to attack and says there is no need to hold back, and uses his quick attack. Leonardo easily blocks Phildo's strike, and immediately counters. They clash across the arena, the two exchange rapid blows. Leonardo remarks that it's not a bad move, and acknowledges that this is more than he expected. Leonardo says, "Oh," as he observes the damage on his training sword. Phildo grins and asks, so what he is going to do still needs a warm-up. Then a caption reveals, Phildo Electria is level 120, and Leonardo says no, his subordinate will scold him if he breaks any more of the precious equipment. To see Phildo in full strength, it seems they need to use a real sword. Leonardo asks if that is all the equipment Phildo has. Leonardo says that when Phildo is ready, he should just take a stance. Phildo asks how they will determine the winner. Leonardo raises a finger and says single strike. If even a single strike reaches his body, Phildo can consider it his victory. Phildo asks if Leonardo is sure saying something like that. Leonardo replies that Phildo seems very confident. He thinks based on the exchange they had, it seems he has an advantage in pure strength and agility. But he is sure Leonardo realized that too. He wonders how Leonardo could be so calm. He asks Phildo if he has ever killed someone before. Phildo says he does not, but says those situations would often arise from escorting a merchant. He was only accompanying for monster subjugation, that's all. Leonardo says, really? Then it would be good to keep that in mind. Leonardo activates a skill and a whirlwind surrounds him. He appears in full armor and activates Durandal, a speed buff. Phildo is shocked by his speed. Leonardo mocks him as slow, then strikes him, sending Phildo rolling across the ground. Leonardo says the opponents that adventurers have a hard time dealing with are often highly intelligent, like goblins and werewolves who are cunning, sometimes attack in groups. However, the ones who have the most knowledge about adventurers are fellow human. Phildo manages to avoid his attack, but Leonardo says, well, fortunately, it is one-on-one now. It's a lot easier than dealing with a bunch of bandits. Leonardo activates Durandal, a power buff. Leonardo attacks one more time, but Phildo blocks the strike. Leonardo says good reaction. Phildo dodges backward as Leonardo swings. Phildo says that attack just now disappeared from his sight in an instant. He tells himself to calm down. Leonardo mocks, there's got to be some kind of a trick to it, if that is what Phildo is thinking. He explains that his holy sword, Durandal, has the ability to grant powerful physical enhancements to the wielder. There's more, but the best one is this. Fildo asks if that is okay, telling him such kind of information. Leonardo says, of course, it's no problem at all because it's not something that can be avoided, even if you know about it. Fildo thinks the strike is unusual and heavy. Because there are no openings, he can't find an opportunity to counterattack. Leonardo almost hits Fildo and says Fildo's feet are out of place. Fildo thinks it's so hard to deal with Leonardo. The girls are shocked as they witness the intense battle unfolding right beside them. Leonardo apologizes, saying he got a little carried away, so they need to move away. Lumina casts Erwin to fly away outside the battle arena. She asks why is that to think that Fildo would have a hard time. Lunasis explains that, for instance, if she were to fight using purely swordsmanship, she might have a chance of defeating Leonardo. However, when it comes to practical application, the situation changes. He probably concentrates his enhancements on a single point, allowing him to momentarily surpass even Fildo's physical abilities. In addition, his combat style is close-quarter specialist. She continues that his strength lies in his high level of adaptability, a foe who cannot be read based on instincts or learned behaviors, unlike beasts or demons. She says she's sure he makes a formidable opponent for Fildo. Lumina panics and asks if Fildo is going to win. A flashback appears in the kingdom, where Guildmaster of Silverblade, Leonardo, is summoned by the king. The king orders that the case of Fildo Electria be entrusted to Leonardo, to which he replies with understood, revealing his true intentions. He already plans all of that. When we see Leonardo stands beside Fildo's bed as he lies unconscious, one of his subordinates asks him what about the Sword Saint and her sister. He told them he was on absolute bed rest right now and they shouldn't move him. So they went to a nearby inn. They were very insistent until the very end. He asks what Leonard is going to do. Leonard looks over and says, "For real, things become quite a hassle, hasn't it?" The man says even the king talks about troublesome matters. That is a way of saying, let us decide what we want to do. The masked man suggests should we support him with the silver blade. The man adds, remove the source of anxiety, huh? It's because that guy Claude was so serious when it came to guild management. Although the others were also quietly watching, he couldn't believe his ears when he heard they kicked him out. Leonardo says even that was rather unusual though. Fildo being expelled, there was no withdrawal procedure in place. The man throws his hands up and says he doesn't get it at all, while the masked man says maybe they kicked him out on the spur of the moment and he didn't get the procedure done in time. Claude is very much of that type, Leonardo adds, or perhaps he had no intention of letting go when he threw him out, or so, he suddenly shouts, shocking them. The man says, what is it, suddenly raising your voice like that? No can do, people are sleeping, Leonardo mutters, yikes. Leonardo clutches his face and says he just had a really bad idea. One man asks, hey what? Another says tell us too please. Leonardo whispers his idea to them. Someone says no, sure. It's something that we could do, but seriously. Leonard says it's already bad enough that he came up with this idea. Two others say they are similar, and the boss is usually a very nice person too, you know. Leonard says well, setting aside his circumstances, he wonders if he could keep him here with them. He'd love to have someone like him. The masked man says whether or not he's agree. Another man says, boss, to begin with, you can't just let someone in without knowing what their abilities are. He means, only a few people know about this guy after all. How about we start with a little practice match for now? Will he get along with us? He'll just nudge him a bit there to get him in the mood. Even if he's weak, it's still fine as long as he agrees sincerely if he's somewhat strong in decline. It would be detrimental for the country and them. Leonardo says if he becomes a threatening presence, they'll have to deal with it. The man adds, it would be nice if we could fight and win. It's not uncommon to find yourself dealing with monsters at a higher level than you are. That's just you, though. Leonardo asks Marie, what does she think of Fildo? Then it reveals that the masked man is a girl. Marie answers honestly, it's frightening, isn't it, with this level of ability considering the potential for future growth. She concludes Fildo is a monster. Fildo evades all of Leonardo's attacks, and in the end, a glint in his eye reveals just how powerful he truly is. Fildo widens his eyes as Leonardo charges in, slashing down with his great sword. The swing crashes toward Fildo with immense speed. Fildo grits his teeth and locks blades with Leonardo. Leonardo's eyes narrow in focus. He draws back and slashes again, sending Fildo's body is launched across the field. He crashes down and rolls, pain flashing across his face. Leonardo watches the impact and lowers his sword and calls out to him, asking if he hit too hard. Fildo yells out that he is okay, but this one definitely left a bruise. Leonardo mocks that Fildo is really strong, isn't he? Fildo accuses him of blowing him away and questions what this is. Sarcasm? Fildo pants and admits he was expecting several ribs to break. Leonardo's eyes are keeping up with his movements. He concludes it's not going to be easy after all. Leonardo smiles and comments that it's interesting. Fildo clutches his side and glares forward, muttering that Leonardo still smiles casually. Fildo is beginning to grasp the logic. Leonardo's method of enhancement is an all-out focus on either muscle strength or agility for speed, and Leonardo switches them at the moment of attack. He states that as long as he doesn't lose sight of him, there will be a change during the switch. Fildo and Leonardo charge toward each other again. Fildo braces his sword and prepares to cut, but Leonardo stops his sword just short of Fildo's neck. Fildo's eyes widen in shock. Leonardo looks down at him. He smiles and says that to stop at the last moment, Fildo is really a soft-hearted person. Fildo stumbles back in confusion, shouting, "What?" Leonardo apologizes with the word, "Oops." He tells Fildo not to call it cowardly. He reminds him that he asked first, didn't he? Leonardo pushes Fildo down and towers over him, asking if that's all the equipment he has. Leonardo narrows his eyes and declares that if Fildo can land even a single blow on him, he wins. He asks if Fildo expected him to concede to that. He warns Fildo to keep this in mind, and his hand stops in a real battle like this. The opponent won't show any mercy towards him. None at all. Leonardo moves in. Calling such naivety, it will be the downfall of Fildo and his comrades. He then throws Fildo away. Fildo grits his teeth and pants as his vision starts to blur. Leonardo accuses Fildo of being excessively irresponsible regarding his own abilities to a person like that. Leonardo declares that he would never concede a win. Fildo pushes himself up and says, "Well then, let's continue our match." Leonardo says he may not be as strong as Fildo, but he is confident in his physical strength too. He suggests they stick with it until they settle this. He runs through the grass, trying to create distance. Leonardo says it is fine to try to create some distance, but that is not good enough against someone like him. He has much less move with that kind of vision. That blinding attack should have effect, right? He thinks it will be difficult for Fildo to even open his eyes for a while. Leonardo says that if it were him, perhaps surrendering before becoming a meatball would be a good idea. He recalls Leonardo saying whatever he wants, that sort of thing. When it comes to that, he understands it the most. He tries to summon Excalibur. He wonders if he can bring it out in a city like this. He thinks that if it's Leonardo, he would instantly make a judgment on this choice. He realizes clearly when facing him, it cannot be measured by status alone. There's an overwhelming difference in practical combat experience. This is someone who confronts things seriously. Surely joining this person's guild wouldn't be a bad idea? And Leonardo's words are logical too. Right now, there are too many things he lacks besides strength. Fildo grabs his sword with both hands. He continues that even for Fildo, there are selfish desires that he wants to fulfill. Leonardo watches from a distance and says Fildo's stance is admirable. But that's not enough to stop him. Leonardo swings his sword, but Fildo unleashes a powerful slash, splashing the water. Fildo thinks to ignore any provocation. He notes that if Leonardo catches on, he will absolutely not come any closer. The chance is just before launching an attack, a powerful forward stride. Fildo activates Absolute Holy Barrier, Avalon. Leonardo widens his eyes and looks surprised. A flashback shows a bed and a small desk. In a room, just waiting to be called for the next job, recalling lessons and adventure tales from old picture books. Every day, he picked up the remnants of someone else's adventure. Nothing more than a tool for daydreaming. Unable to do anything, he concludes it's time to part ways with the him from that day. Fildo shouts that he wants to be free. He charges at Leonardo with his sword raised. He yells that he wants to live as a person. Leonardo smiles and says, "Well, I guess that's acceptable." Leonard and Fildo clash in midair. In the next scene, a young girl rushes into the Graham Guild Hall, urgently searching for information about her brother Fildo. Inside the hall, she approaches a guild member, only to learn that Fildo is not currently present. The member explains that he is outside training and gives her directions to the correct building ahead. Following the instructions on her own, she moves through the corridor until a strange noise suddenly startles her, drawing her attention toward a nearby room. When she cautiously steps inside, she discovers a horrifying sight. A severely injured man collapsed beneath a desk, trembling violently. The wounded man screams in agony as crystals tear through his body, the pain overwhelming him. Elsewhere, Fildo kneels in exhaustion with his sword planted in shallow water, his breathing heavy after a brutal battle. He struggles to recall the final moments of the fight, and questions whether his attack actually landed. Fragmented memories flash through his mind as his vision fades and confusion spreads, leaving him to fear that his reckless strike may have gone too far. Suddenly, Leonard appears, alive and cheering. He steps forward and embraces Fildo, praising him with open admiration for his overwhelming strength. Leonard staggers slightly as he speaks, complimenting Fildo's tactics while ignoring the sting of his barely healed injury. He begins explaining his strategy and reveals how the depth and sound of the river concealed his final position during the battle. As they reflect on the fight together, the conversation shifts to how terrain influences timing and visibility, especially when water is not present to hide movement. Leonard admits that he anticipated a trap and believed Fildo would attempt to grab his sword mid-attack. The two burst into laughter as he mocks Fildo's bold attempt to disarm him during the clash. Overcome with embarrassment, Fildo lowers himself and apologizes sincerely. Leonard, however, quickly recognizes that the tension between them has completely vanished. He reassures Fildo by reminding him of the purpose behind their match and openly affirms the potential he sees in him as a comrade. Fildo admits his regret for losing control, explaining that his powers are meant to support others rather than harm the people around him. Surprised by Leonard's reaction, Fildo slowly looks up when forgiveness is offered without hesitation or judgment. Leonard even acknowledges his own fault, explaining that he understands Fildo's reaction comes from loyalty towards someone he deeply trusts. Fighting back tears, Fildo forces himself not to break down as thoughts of Lunasis and the true importance she holds in his life surface in his mind. Nearby, Lunasis watches quietly, silently acknowledging that her role in Fildo's life has grown far beyond simple companionship. Suddenly, another figure lands nearby with a heavy impact, startling everyone present as Leonard is offered a healing potion. He hesitates to explain, recalling a moment earlier when his calm expression barely concealed the deeper uncertainty hidden beneath it. To everyone's astonishment, Leonard reveals the secret of his sword, an immortal blade capable of nullifying wounds. When the power of Durandal activates, the severed fingers that had been lost earlier instantly dissolve into steam and begin regenerating in midair. With quiet confidence, he demonstrates a complete recovery, revealing that the sword can nullify nearly any form of injury. He further explains that Durandal grants both resurrection and power enhancement, making him an ideal candidate for dangerous combat trials. Meanwhile, Lunasis brings up a recent discovery, revealing that a powerful creature has recently been cleaved completely in half. Leonard quickly connects that event with the destructive pillar of light that erupted earlier and links it directly to Fildo's blade, confirming his involvement. Leonard then openly admits that he recruited Fildo with a clear purpose, believing their swords share a mysterious connection. A brief recollection of Leonard's past reveals how others once pressured him to make similar decisions, yet he insists that Fildo's path must ultimately remain his own. Lunasis supports this stance and declares her neutrality, explaining that the choices Fildo makes in battle belong entirely to him, Leonard. Choosing patience lightens the mood by humorously buying a potion, earning praise for his unexpectedly kind personality. Lunasis says that if Leonard is going to give Fildo the potion, he should hurry, but Leonard denies it. He didn't come here for that. Instead, he came here for the sword saint, Lunasis Arclight. Lunasis then formally apologizes for her earlier behavior, while Leonard openly admits that he exploited Fildo's strengths during their duel. Before he can respond, Lunasis suddenly vows to repay the debt she owes him, surprising him with her sudden determination. When he refers to her as a benefactor, the others look confused, recalling several conflicting stories about the nature of their relationship. With tears forming in his eyes, Fildo explains that Lunasis once fulfilled a promise made long ago, and that his deep gratitude toward her has often been hidden behind stubborn loyalty. Quietly reflecting on his life as an adventurer, he admits that people in their profession rarely receive second chances, and waiting too long can mean losing opportunities forever. He also recognizes his own mistake. Victories against monsters had given him false confidence, but they never truly prepared him for battles against skilled human opponents. In that moment, he realizes that a real fight would have ended his life instantly. Before he can dwell on the thought for long, Leonard suddenly calls out, interrupting his reflection. A horrifying enemy emerges nearby. Forced to react immediately, Fildo turns to confront a parasite-infested attacker without hesitation. Leonard moves even faster, dashing forward with a burst of speed and striking the monster before it can reach him. He then confronts Claude directly and threatens violence unless he answers serious questions about his past actions. Under pressure, he confesses to using illegal poison and admits responsibility for killing the executive of Light of Glory, though the others initially laugh off the significance. Accusations quickly follow, The mention of Fildo's engraved sword suggests something deeper may be involved, revealing that she knowingly handed the sword over despite understanding the dangerous implications tied to it. Leonard suddenly realizes that he has been kept in the dark and reacts with shock upon learning that Claude withheld critical information about Fildo. Claude responds with mockery, reminding everyone that Leonard once served as a guildmaster and deliberately provoking reactions from Fildo's allies. Lunasis, visibly disappointed, admits that she once believed Claude possessed the ambition to grow beyond her arrogance. Just as Lunasis begins discussing the matter of custody transfer, however, danger suddenly appears behind Leonard. The threat emerges so abruptly that it catches everyone completely off guard. Claude launches a surprise attack without hesitation, forcing Lunasis to block the blow in the middle of her sentence. He reveals his plan: the deadly artifact will kill everyone, regardless of what they think. Everyone freezes as Claude activates it, summoning a towering structure that pierces the sky ominously. A massive black spire descends, signaling catastrophe, the worst-case scenario becoming reality. A demonic dragon follows its arrival as panic spreads through the area. Fildo stands firm, shielding the terrified elven sisters behind him. The beast's summoning ravages the city. Tornadoes form instantly, signaling that overwhelming destruction is already underway. The calculations misfire. Fildo's expression hardens as he realizes the creature far exceeds his projected magical tolerance threshold. Two warriors already lie defeated. Their pursuit of the truth about Fildo has led them to ruin across From's shattered ground. Fildo merges as energy flares violently around him. Someone screams his name through trembling breaths. A cross cracks against the stone. The enemy mocks him, revealing himself as Fildo's estranged older brother while feigning pity. The brother questions Fildo's heart, blaming his cruelty on a cold upbringing. Fildo remains silent. The words strike deeply as memories of painful guidance from that twisted figure resurface. He answers not with emotion, but with power. A massive summon declares death impartial to all. Before the divine strike can hit, another warrior jumps in, shocked, yet ready to shield the impact. Amid collapsing rubble, beams strike the ground. Fildo's ally rushes in, barely avoiding a fatal blow. Pinned and injured, the rescuer groans in pain. Blood flows freely from the wounded arm. Still conscious, he reassures Fildo. Despite knowing Fildo could have handled it alone, he intervenes without hesitation. Leonard regains consciousness. Though healing slowly, he immediately warns them that Bahamut, the summoned beast, is approaching. Fildo listens grimly. Bahamut, born for chaos, has escaped the sealed shrine and reached the surface. Analyzed skill reveals hidden power tiers. Levels are not always accurate. Some monsters disguise overwhelming strength with ease. Shock overtakes him as the realization strikes. Something about this encounter feels fundamentally different, unnervingly so. Bahamut hovers above them, massive and silent. The status window declares it at level 200, far above known limits. Rows of glowing eyes gleam in the darkness. Countless pupils lock onto their position, tracking every minor movement. Its mouth opens wide, larger than Fildo's body. Panic sets in. Retreat seems too late now. Pure dread overwhelms him. His muscles lock and his thoughts scatter. This is not instinct, it is terror made real. Voices race through his mind, survival allies, hope. But none offer a solution against the overwhelming threat. A sudden clap interrupts the panic. Gloved hands strike together, snapping him back from the spiral of fear. The tension lifts slightly. One prays, another watches in disbelief as courage slowly replaces confusion. A slap lands gently. Relief follows. The shock fades. Even the enemy blinks in confusion at their unexpected moment of calm. Leonard hands Fildo an artifact. With the evacuation finished, only one task remains: neutralize the threat. The necklace glows faintly in his palm. An ancient enchantment promises protection from corrupting magical influence. The tension vanishes. His muscles relax. That paralyzing pressure was artificial, triggered by Bahamut's high-level fear aura. Leonard gives no time for hesitation. He issues his instructions, then walks toward the certain confrontation alone. Dust erupts around him as he moves. His smile returns. Facing a deadly foe, Leonard prepares to fight seriously. A focused beam erupts from Bahamut's mouth, tearing through rock and crushing everything in its path. Instead of retreating, Leonard grins fiercely. Energy gathers in his eyes as he prepares a counterattack. His armor scorches and his cape trails fire as he dashes forward, determined to close the distance instantly. Bahamut twists its massive body, sensing danger. Rings of magic activate around it, launching a barrage of intercepting attacks downward. The momentum shatters. Leonard crashes hard into the ground, enraged. Bahamut taunts him, believing that escape is no longer possible. Power surges through Leonard as his weapon. Durandal activates. His eyes lock forward. One move, all stats enhanced for full output. A blinding charge begins. Bahamut braces, too late, as an energy slash tears straight through its wing. Despite the damage, its scales hold strong. Leonard grits his teeth, impressed but not discouraged by the resistance. The momentum begins to shift. His blade flashes rapidly. Leonard presses the assault hard, aiming to break Bahamut's defenses completely. Its body is battered. Bahamut staggers slightly. Continuous pressure creates openings. Victory almost seems possible. Until light suddenly flares again. The strike lands cleanly, but the armor absorbs most of the damage. Leonard's expression tightens in frustrated disbelief. Bahamut counters immediately. Its massive tail whips across the stone, unleashing an explosion that swallows the entire impact zone. When the smoke clears, Leonard and his sword are pinned beneath the wreckage. Heat and pressure rapidly crack the surrounding debris, as Fildo glances upward and notices the charging orbs gathering power above him. Realizing too late that a mistake has left him exposed, he feels his breath catch in his chest as his options vanish. A burst of energy launches toward him, leaving escape impossible. Light and force blur together until shards of debris scatter across the battlefield. At that moment, Fildo steps forward, raising a shimmering barrier that intercepts the devastating blow meant for Leonard. Frustration rises immediately, because his orders have been disobeyed, yet the reckless act awakens something unexpected inside the veteran knight. Fildo quickly apologizes and insists on remaining in the fight, declaring that standing back is no longer an option. Confidence radiates from him despite his injuries as he assures Leonard that he will not break under the pressure. Understanding his resolve, the two warriors raise their swords together. With their purpose aligned, they prepare to strike down the strongest enemy alive. Before them stands a legendary dragon. Fildo joins the armored knight, and together they ready themselves for a deadly extermination mission. While citizens flee through collapsing streets, Miguel works tirelessly to coordinate the crowd, guiding survivors away from the dragon's destructive path. Suddenly, debris crashes down from above, and screams erupt as panic spreads through the tightly packed alleyways. Without hesitation, Miguel leaps forward and shields a nearby child from the falling rubble. Nearby, a wizard prepares a defensive spell to hold back the enemy's devastating assault, while chaos spreads across the city. The defenders begin questioning the dragon's identity, and suspicion quickly settles on Bahamut, their most feared nightmare. Smoke rises across the burning ruins as Miguel surveys the destruction, knowing the orders remain clear: evacuate the civilians first and wait for the battle's outcome. Among the shattered stones nearby, a priestess coughs weakly while her companion lies unconscious beneath rubble. When she realizes the fallen warrior is her own sister, panic tightens in her chest and she rushes forward. Meanwhile, steel clashes as the armored knight charges ahead, deliberately drawing the dragon's attention away from the civilians fleeing behind them. The dragon roars violently. From above, a brave fighter launches himself downward with blade drawn, aiming for a lethal strike. Gritting his teeth, Fildo meets the dragon's force head-on with controlled strength, but the creature counters immediately. To everyone's shock, the wounds inflicted upon the beast begin closing before their eyes, healing faster than they can strike. Nervous laughter spreads among the fighters as they realize the creature is regenerating, though they cling to the hope that a hidden weakness must exist somewhere. Meanwhile, destruction continues to spread across the battlefield. Someone hands over a final healing potion, their last remaining hope, and the orders quickly change. Fildo's power now becomes the key to victory. While their allies attempt to cripple the dragon's wings, he must aim for the creature's core. Flames erupt from the surrounding rubble as Fildo shouts, "Illumina!" and charges through the collapsing terrain with sword in hand. At the same time, a radiant barrier expands outward as Lily's veil activates, bathing the battlefield in divine light that shields their allies from the impending destruction. Despite the spell's strength, the pressure continues to build. Lily braces herself, struggling to maintain the protective barrier from above, until Fildo suddenly shouts a desperate warning. A massive blast slams into the ground and shatters the earth beneath their feet. Dust briefly settles before one of their companions stumbles forward and reassures Fildo that they survived, though danger still looms over the ruined battlefield. High above them, Bahamut continues to soar. Realizing they must reach the dragon quickly, Fildo turns toward the priestess and urgently asks her to use wind magic to lift them to Bahamut's elevation. Wind swirls beneath them as the spell activates, As they rise into the sky, panic spreads through the group because airborne combat was never part of the plan. Strengthened by enchantments, the armored knight surges upward, while the dragon patiently coils its wings, gathering power. Their blades strike against the monster's body but barely leave a mark as Bahamut's scales deflect the attacks with ease. At that moment, only one option remains. They must strike the core from below. The priestess channels her magic upward, her body trembling under the strain even as her resolve remains firm. Then an ominous force suddenly paralyzes her. Terror flashes across her eyes as crushing pressure overwhelms her concentration, causing her spell to falter mid-cast. Above her, Fildo and the knight stagger in the air as the dragon's aura releases a powerful fear effect. With urgency, the knight calls out to the others. Their attacks are failing. Bahamut's defenses remain far too strong. Fear spreads like poison. The priestess's hands shake uncontrollably as her will nearly breaks beneath the invisible weight, and her unstable magic spirals out of control. A violent blast surges across the battlefield and shatters their formation. Smoke pours from Leonard's armor as he collapses among shattered rubble, barely breathing and completely defenseless beneath the cliffs on the far side of the battlefield. When the priestess sees him fall, a cry escapes her lips as shock and terror grip her trembling heart. From the crater below, Bahamut slowly rises and advances. Beneath the wreckage, Fildo lies stunned with his eyes fixed on the dragon approaching certain death. Then, in a single heartbeat, strength surges back into his body. Clenching his fist, Fildo launches himself upward as rubble explodes outward around him. Bahamut lunges forward with its jaws wide open. Fildo barely dodges the attack, but finds himself trapped between jagged rubble and the dragon's crushing claws. For a moment their eyes meet, Fildo and Bahamut staring directly into one another. Watching in horror, the priestess screams his name, convinced she is about to witness his death. But from behind the dragon, the armored knight charges forward. Her blade glows with brilliant divine light as it pierces deep into Bahamut's flank. Though the strike lands, the effort leaves her wounded, and she collapses forward from the strain. The younger sister rushes toward her as corruption begins swirling around Bahamut, while dark energy gathers into spiraling orbs. "Lily," the sister whispers, her voice catching painfully in her throat. Something feels terribly wrong. Explosions erupt violently across the shattered battlefield, and the priestess is hurled backward, defenseless and exposed. Through tears, she cries out as her sister collapses to the ground. At the same time, Bahamut grows even stronger as dark energy floods its body. Without hesitation, Fildo sprints forward. He leaps between the dragon and the fallen priestess, shielding her from the incoming blast while cradling her body tightly against his chest. The impact strikes him directly. Light fades behind a veil of debris. Softly, the wounded knight whispers his name. Fildo crashes to the ground, bloodied but still standing. "Don't speak," he murmurs gently. Resting in his arms, the knight manages a weak smile as he channels magic to ease her pain. She apologizes for failing, but Fildo ignores his own injuries and instead uses the final potion to heal her wounds. Then he rises once again and tightens his grip around his sword. Despite his exhaustion, Fildo finally sees a chance to win. Above them, the sky cracks open as the enemy descends once more. Illumina freezes where she stands, blaming herself for everything that has happened. Overwhelmed by regret, she collapses as the crushing thought consumes her. Useless to her sister, useless to Master Fildo. Seeing her despair, Fildo rushes forward and grabs her shoulders. Her apology falters as he urges her to keep fighting. Their chance has finally arrived. Lunasis's sacrifice has exposed a weakness in the monster's defenses. Shadows shift across the battlefield as the creature staggers. Now vulnerable at last, Fildo shouts with renewed determination. Only one final push remains. Together, they will end this, no matter the cost. A devastating blow finally cracks the creature's armor and reveals the weak point hidden beneath its chest. Without hesitation, Fildo launches himself skyward with his blade drawn, closing the distance before the monster can react. Landing with perfect timing, he ducks low and narrowly avoids a blast. While smoke hides the dragon's fury, the enemy begins charging a massive attack. At that exact moment, Leonard sprints forward and calls out to Fildo. While analyzing the delay in the buildup, Leonard demands a fast strategy, urgency burning in his eyes because the battle will not pause. Hearing the pressure in Leonard's voice, Fildo shouts with fury that he will obliterate the monster's head completely, and Leonard immediately leaps forward without hesitation, his voice steady as he vows to support Fildo's final strike directly. The others step back and place their trust in Fildo, while he steadies his aim, ignoring fear and focusing only on the target, bruised but determined. Illumina urges Fildo to unleash everything and not hold back this time, just as the enemy soars into the sky again, and Fildo's eyes narrow while locking onto it. He refuses to let the creature escape a second time. Illumina steps forward as well, determined not to be deceived again, and her grip tightens while her eyes burn with fierce resolve. Winds surge around her as memories awaken, and the power that once felt uncertain now blooms through shared experience. A storm of petals and blades erupts around her, and Illumina's magic accelerates Fildo toward their flying enemy. Her level surges alongside the strength she unleashes, and she is no longer merely support but a force of her own. Tears fall down her cheeks, yet her fear disappears as she screams with conviction and charges forward with magic blazing in defiance. The beast's eyes widen in shock when razor-sharp vines pierce its armored body from every direction while wind rages violently around them. Fildo pushes through the raging whirlwind and strikes before the creature can recover, while Leonard joins the fray by launching an aerial attack as their teammates keep the monster distracted from below. His blow fails, however, and the enemy sneers while blood drips from its wounds. Leonard braces himself as pain surges instantly through his body, and an explosive counterattack erupts in response. Dust and heat engulf the battlefield and obscure everything, making it impossible to tell whether anyone survives the blast. Even so, Leonard charges wildly through the chaos, laughing through the pain because, despite his injuries, he forces himself into a vital decoy role. With his sword raised high, Fildo descends through the storm, determined to end everything with a final strike. By analyzing the monster's earlier attacks, he identifies the weak point hidden near its glowing throat, and strikes with absolute certainty. The enemy's core pulses, exposed and vulnerable at last, while Evrioni watches in tense silence as rubble shifts across the shattered battlefield, and Illumina whispers anxiously. Unsure whether Fildo's strike has succeeded, cracks spread beneath his feet, while the cloaked warrior raises his blade again for a decisive blow. The monster laughs mockingly, unaware that the attack has already revealed a critical weakness in its defenses. Although blood and exhaustion weigh heavily on everyone, the team's combined effort creates an opening, even if that opening is barely visible. Without hesitation, Fildo strikes the weak spot again, and shouts with force as debris explodes outward violently and the core trembles beneath the assault.